Everybody thinks the PvP chads want Inertia gone. They think that all of you guys think it's terrible, and you both in like 2 seconds were like, the 80s strafing sucked pre-Inertia. It definitely needed Inertia. It's just not right, and we should be critical about it to get it right.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? What's up, everybody? So as Escape from Tarkov has gotten more and more popular over the last few years, it has attracted a lot more types of gamers to the game. One of those groups I call the PvP chads are a group of people that chase down the thrill of Escape from Tarkov's PvP and are really, really good at it. These are the guys that love to min-max absolutely everything in the game to give themselves every advantage they can to win fights, and they're really good at doing that. And as that style of play has gotten more and more popular and more fun to watch, it seems that it has kind of created a little bit of a rift in the community. Regardless of what's really happening, there's a lot of people that think that these PvP chads want to, quote unquote, ruin the game. They want all the changes to be in their advantage. They want to make the game faster, more arcadey, and less like the original vision of Tarkov. And then the perception, at least, is that these guys think that the people that enjoy the realism or the immersion of Escape from Tarkov, they need to just get good and learn how to play like them. And I had a suspicion that most of that was kind of just made up social media drama, and that there was actually a lot more common ground between the quote unquote PvP chads and the people that like to play the game in a different way. So I asked a few of them to sit down and have a conversation and to get their opinions as people with upwards of 10,000 hours in the game that like to push and get PvP in every single raid possible, and get their opinions and give them the opportunity to talk about what they like or don't like about the game and see how it stacks up with the rest of us. So shout out to Rengawr, Tigz, and HyperRat. I will link all of their channels below. These are all great guys, and we actually ended up having some really awesome conversations. So here it is. It's long. I'm going to try and leave the timestamps down below so you can get to a specific topic if you're looking forward to it, but this was a really awesome opportunity to clear the air and actually talk about how Escape from Tarkov is a really, truly amazing game with a lot of potential, and we all want a lot of similar things to happen to it. If you like the video, think about subscribing to the channel here. I do a lot of Escape from Tarkov stuff, and I also stream Escape from Tarkov almost every single day. My Twitch channel will be down below. I'd love to have you stop by and say hey. With all that out of the way, though, I really hope you enjoy the conversation. But cool, man. So let's go ahead and hop in. So yeah, this is like, we were talking earlier about how it's so weird. It's like anytime like 2 or more people have a conversation, you call it a podcast. It's like, I guess this is a podcast, but this is something that I'd been just like thinking in the back of my head of doing for a while, and just kind of having a conversation. I think just to kind of like preface it and to get some of it out there, we talked about this on the podcast yesterday about how the weird human condition that happens when people like talk about stuff on Twitter and then people react to that person's thing, and then the reaction to the reaction, like every person's reaction is always more negative and more toxic, and then that balloons out, and then it starts to be the new thing to be like, oh, there's so much drama in Tarkov, and then that becomes the new meta to like talk about all the drama, and it ends up being so blown out of proportion, so far away from what anybody was actually ever talking about. And so obviously, like, the reason why I wanted to get you guys on specifically is because you guys represent a part of the community that is much more like to play a lot of Tarkov, really aggressive. For those of you that don't know, obviously we're going to do shout outs for everybody in the description and everything. But like, if you don't know, HyperRat here, this man's grinded to 1 billion rubles, like what, 5-6 times, like played a lot of Tarkov. Tigz, I've been hanging out in his chat a lot recently, crushing the YouTube game, doing all sorts of insane stuff with like the craziest builds you could possibly imagine. This guy's insane. Rengawr as well was supposed to be here. I've been getting some raids with him recently. So thank you guys for coming on and being willing to do this. And basically the goal here is to be able to like talk and have a conversation and it not be like Twitter
super toxic.
Exactly.
I feel like a lot of people like misunderstand like what our tweets are.
Yeah, 100%.
It's more so like we kind of just like state like what's going on, you know, like this like the straight fact, or like the like want to state something that like people just don't want to post because they know they'll get hits.
Yeah.
It's just like the total truth, like
for sure. And go ahead, Tigz.
Sorry, go ahead. My bad. Okay, so for us, like when we tweet out stuff like that, it's hard to like really give an example without making a video. So when we tweet something out that like may be broken, like for example, the right side peeking in this game, right? Like to kill AI in Tarkov right now, you have to right side peek them. For example, like the rogues, and it's like if we tweet stuff out like that, people don't really understand because we obviously play this game a lot, and that's, to me, that's a broken mechanic, right? Like,
Yeah.
if you're a new player and you're trying to kill an AI like a rogue and you left side peek, you get instantly killed, and you're just like, wait, what happened? You're like, how am I supposed to counter this? So like, we try and tweet things out like that are kind of game breaking, and unfortunately, a lot of people misinterpret what we're trying to do. We're not trying to make the game, you know, like around what we want.
Yeah.
It's just there's these broken mechanics in the game that will affect everyone eventually. They just got to put more time in, and then that will come. Yeah. Like, we've played thousands of hours, so that's why we see it so much, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And we don't hate at all. We're just pointing these things out, and so hopefully they get fixed, and we will keep pointing them out until they will get fixed.
Yes. Yeah. And all of that, yes. And actually, a lot of this came from the idea for this podcast came from a DM I sent Tigz on Twitter one day when, like, you tweeted something and I responded. I was like, yo, I'd love to talk to you about that, because even I, somebody who plays this game a lot, even I kind of initially took offense to what you tweeted, and I was like getting defensive. And then I was like, no, like, Twitter's not the place to do this. And so I like DM'd you, and I was like, and then you wrote me like a paragraph of stuff. And I responded and I was like, I agree with everything you said. It's if we take all it takes is so often just one more layer. If we just get one more layer, we realize that, and this is what I said in the group DM when I was like messaging everybody. It's like, I think there's so much more common ground than people think. I think a lot of people think 100%. That the Chads, the PvP Chads, want X game, they want the game to be this, and then they think, well, all of us casuals want the game to be this, and they think it's this big rift. And of course there will be that to some extent, right? Like, everybody kind of wants something a little bit different out of Tarkov, but I think those things overlap more than people think they do. It's just everybody just gets so frustrated and toxic all the time and stuff like that. And it's a combination of like how we present information. Sometimes it's like, if we're super frustrated, like, it's so funny. I literally just in the raid before I started this podcast, I killed a PMC on reserve. I wiped all of Gluhar, and a PMC came and I threw a nade, and the nade bounced out the window. And what I didn't see is in the corner of the window, it rolled back into the window, and I died. I killed myself. We frame by frame. It was out of the window fully, and it rolled back into the window, and I died. And it was just one of those things where it's like, when that happens, I'm saying stuff like, I hate this game. I don't hate this game, but I'm like malding a little bit because I'm like, this is super frustrating. So it's a combination of like how stuff is presented. Sometimes we're just all gamer malding, but then somebody takes that as like, oh, Jessekazam hates the game. Why does he keep playing it? And so it's like all this stuff like smashed together, and it just like makes for a bunch of miscommunication and negativity, and then that just ends up like propagating more and more throughout the community.
It's just a lot of frustration of dealing with the same bugs that we've been pointing out for like months on end.
For sure.
Because like what I was hoping with like the whole Inertia thing, since it was such a big change in this game, was I was hoped there was going to be weekly tweaks and weekly adjustments that would hopefully, you know, get somewhere to where everyone agrees with it. Because like me, Tigz, and everyone else, we may hate Inertia right now, but we don't say that it needs to be, you know, removed from the game.
Yes.
Like, we agree that the current state of it is not very good for new players and endgame players. Because in my opinion, I feel like the people that no-life this game, like, have the greatest advantage over a new player. This new guy is sliding everywhere.
For sure.
And I'm running like I have no Inertia. Like, I'm going to obviously stomp new people. Like, it's only given me a better advantage, and we know how to counteract it. There's small tips of simply just literally let it going of your hand on your keyboard, and it completely removes you sliding. Like, there's ways around Inertia, and people don't realize it.
And like, I think for me with Inertia is like, I think Inertia is great for Tarkov, and it was needed to begin with anyway, because I've played like, for years as you guys have played. Back in the day on labs, you could have 30% movement speed from max strength. You could pull out a pistol and get an additional 5% movement speed, and it was absolutely ridiculous for the meta of PvP. And then you combine that with you know, ping being high, and then people start ping abusing, and it was really, really bad. So when BSG started like the strength nerfs, I thought that was really good. But yeah, the problem with Inertia, I think most people wanted it for, was the AD spamming, right? Where people were close range and just spamming AD going backwards and forwards. I hated that too. It was terrible for PvP scenarios, and it was just not fun. And I'm glad that like Inertia was there to prevent that. The only problem I think with Inertia in its current state right now is a lot of the newer players to the game will pick up the game, right, and play. They're like, holy crap, this movement's really, really slow to begin with.
Yeah.
And they won't realize a week from now it's going to feel less clunky because of the skill system. So I think, to me, I think Inertia is a little bit too harsh for newer players and returning players early on. And then people like me, Hyper, Vonza, Rengawr, we've been playing the game for like, 8 hours a day, Landmark, whatever. Just the people that play a lot, we have a massive advantage over the people that are lower level. And it's not that like Inertia needs to be nerfed for the high-end players. It's just that it's a little bit too OP a little bit too harsh for the players early on, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I think the progression with the skills when it level the Inertia feels better, right? I think that's good for the game. I think that makes people feel like they're rewarded more for their time spent in terms of the skills. So I don't know. That's just my issue with Inertia, to be honest.
I feel like a lot of the frustration too is like when new players go to like labs, for example, and then they go to fight like raiders, and they just see a raider just do a 180 and go the complete opposite direction, be like, "Yo, I can't do that. Nope. How did that raider just turn around and insta headshot me?" Like, like the frustration starts to come out against Inertia, and Inertia becomes the one to blame. Like, there shouldn't be so many people blaming Inertia because it is needed. Like, all of us agree that it was needed.
And
but
so
the thing is, like, it just wasn't implemented fully, was what we're trying to say.
Yeah,
is that,
which is classic BSG, right? And so, so that it's crazy how little. Like, so that's a great segue to like on my notes. I want to talk about Inertia. Basically, with that preface of everything we just talked about, I wanted to go through some of the things. So I promise this will come back to Inertia. I represent, like, I've got 4,000 hours of this game, but I've never played a competitive game before. I was console Andy. This is my first PC game that I've put more than 10. You know what I mean? Like, I'm still like, I have so much head knowledge of what to do because 4,000 hours in the game, but executing on it, like, you guys are on another league than I am. So I've got 4,000 hours of the game, but in some sense, I still represent not a newer player because I've got a ton of the knowledge, but like not as aggressive of PvP. I like to play slow. I'm very like, I'm all for all of the like RNG stuff and all of the new maps, and I want open world and the immersion, and like, I love that stuff. So I basically wrote down notes, and I was like, I know you guys enough to know that, like, this is what the point of this podcast is. Like, there's a lot more to it. But I wrote down a bunch of things that I think the community thinks you guys all hate. And I wanted to, I'm basically like, we can go through some of these. And it's crazy because in the 2 minutes you both just like talked about Inertia, you've already broken the stereotypical, what people think the PvP chads think about Inertia. Everybody thinks the PvP chads want Inertia gone. They think that all of you guys think it's terrible, and you both in like 2 seconds were like, the 80s strafing sucked pre-Inertia. It definitely needed Inertia. It's just not right, and we should be critical about it to get it right.
Exactly, man.
You know what I mean?
Constructive criticism that goes a long way for things like that. And Inertia is like, it's needed more development. Like, the best example I try and give to my chat is like, I think Inertia would have been great in the game maybe 6 months from now when we're able to swap the models of our character's gun onto the other shoulder so we can actually take left side peeks. And when AI has basic function for Inertia as well. Because I know myself, and probably you, when you've gone to labs, you've come around a corner, a raider's kicked the door down, turned around 180'd, ran off, turned around again, and then one tapped you, and you're like, what the hell? How am I supposed to counter that, right? So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's my
I definitely think one of the most egregious things, and I'm sure one of my bullet points down here is AI, so we'll talk about that in a minute. But like, a lot comes back to that when you add anything to the game that's not an even playing field. When like we have Inertia but the AI don't, or like we have this, it's a really rough place. But so like, so to kind of like plant on Inertia a little bit. So you like, is it safe to say that you both are glad it's in the game and want it in the game? So what is it about it that's negative? You guys both alluded to like the ability to almost counter it at higher skill. I think like Hyper, you were saying a little bit, like it's not even just like strength skill, but like the knowledge of knowing like when to let go of your key.
Yeah. So there's a lot of ways around Inertia that people don't realize. Like simply instead of like, so the way that Inertia works right now is if you're holding A and then you immediately tap D after while holding A, it will skew the function of you sliding.
Yes.
Right? But if you simply let go of your keyboard, so if I'm holding A and I unhold it and then I tap D, it'll completely ignore that function because it stops your character immediately. and then you immediately go back to like strafing. So it's basically old AD strafing, just with another layer of complication of this letting go of your keyboard. And if you can do that fast enough, you're basically just AD spamming like previous wipe.
That's so interesting.
That's what I've been doing. So what I do is I just right hand peek a door, and I just tap D, and then I let go, and then I tap A, and I'm AD strafing at a door. Like it's
basically all you had to do was put a tiny little bit of input latency between those. In previous wipes, it was just 80, and now you've just got that little bit of latency between each button press, and you functionally have the same thing.
You just give yourself a little bit of patience, and you're pretty much back to AD.
And this is one of those things where a lot of people that don't know that then roll that into, well, strength is OP, when that actually has nothing to do with the strength skill. No, I'm not saying that, like, maybe they should tweak the strength skill. You know what I mean? I'm not saying they shouldn't, but it's funny because when everyone's just like, oh, strength is OP, when you have elite strength, you don't have inertia. Like, you guys could probably do that same thing on a day one standard account if you've got the timing down. You know what I mean? I think personally, like, I was huge, like, big, let's go inertia. Like, I was like, yes, let's get it in there. After playing for 3 months now, I'm glad it's in 2. Me and Veritas were talking about this. I just don't even think the game needs that sliding mechanic. That just feels so bad to me. Like, you can front end the inertia, where if I'm heavy, it takes me a while to peek a corner. It takes me a while to get running because I'm heavy. But like, when I let go, just let me stop. The fact that, like, and I didn't realize it was this bad until recently. I was going to labs with Velian, and we were both coming out with 60, 70, 80 kilos worth of loot. And when you're heavy, bro, it's like 3 full PMC steps. You can let go of W, and it's like slide, stop. And I'm like, that's weird, bro. Like,
it's super clunky, right? Super clunky.
And the thing about it too is, like, another thing that makes it feel even weirder is that when you start like holding another key, your character will start walking that direction, but he's still sliding in the direction that you were going.
Oh, interesting.
It is
a delay.
Yeah, so it just feels like wrong.
Yeah,
very delayed. That's the feeling.
And so,
for sure.
And so I think they could, in my opinion, they could gut a lot of the back end of what happens once I'm in motion. When I stop, just kind of let me stop, maybe give like a tiny bit of delay there, but you can front load it. So peeking, leaning, peeking, walking and sprinting are harder when you have weight. So now you have that conscious decision. Do I ditch my bag? Do whatever. And then maybe, what do you think they should do about, like, I didn't even really know that. I had heard that, but like, how would they counter the whole like input delay thing? Because now we just have 80 strafing the same way. I don't even know how they would fix that. I guess they would just have to make it where if you hit if you hit E to lean, I guess they would just have to make that a little bit, like, slow that down a little bit if you're heavy, and probably make it quicker if you're not.
Yeah, probably like adjustments to the third person model.
Yeah.
Because like, the first person is always like super snappy, but they can always make the third person like very like realistic more looking. Because I would say that the third person model right now is very like unrealistic when it comes to the movements.
Yeah.
Like watching someone like sprint at full speed, and then someone's like, he's going like, super slow while running. It's kind of like, like, what's going on there?
Yeah. 100%. It's like the like in previous patches, if you had like 100 kilograms worth of loot on you, you would sprint and you could hear your footsteps were the same speed, dun, 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 but you're like, you know what I mean?
Like
and a lot of that in the third person, animations, you see that a lot. Man, if you just like, I play duos a lot. That's my favorite way to play the game. Dude, just watching my teammate run around, you're like, oh my God, this is so bad.
Yeah, it's underdeveloped for sure. Like, I was doing some testing with inertia, right? So with max strength, that like you lose all weight on the gear that you wear, which is really, really nice for inertia.
Yeah.
And then I think, what is it? Your guns don't count for weight either. It's only when you start putting stuff in your backpack that inertia starts to kick in harsher.
Yeah.
Like really harsh with the weight. So I tested what it was like without any gear on at all, with just a gun. And I'll be honest, the inertia was there, but it was like, it felt way more smooth. Like the whole like input delay, it wasn't as much as it would be if I was wearing armor, and it actually felt really nice. But I don't know if that would be too. Like, have you got max strength, Jesse?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, when you play Tarkov again, try a raid with just no armor on, no helmet, and just tell me what you feel with the movement. Because I actually thought it felt very nice, and the inertia was still there, so it wasn't like it was being completely removed.
Interesting.
So yeah, that's something I tested out, which felt pretty good.
Interesting.
But yeah. Sure.
Okay, so this isn't like a specific mechanic of the game, but another thing, once again, regardless of if either of you have ever tweeted anything like this is a thing that I think a lot of the community thinks you guys think. So Mythbuster time.
Okay.
I think a lot of times there's this sentiment that like, you know, the game is broken or the game is unplayable. I think broken and unplayable are two words that come up a lot, whether because you guys actually say them or whether it's because people think other people say them. And I would just like, given the state of Tarkov, we know that the audio is absolute cheeks. We know that the AI is absolute cheeks. And then on top of those things, there's a lot of things that need progress, like balancing and inertia. We'll talk about like, what do you guys feel about the state of the game right now, just in general, like non-specific to one thing? Would you say the game is broken? Would you say it's unplayable? Would you say it's just frustrating? Like, where on that spectrum of super fun to like unplayable would you?
So, yeah, you want to go first, Cyber? You go first.
Yeah, I'll just go quickly. So, like, when I see people say unplayable right now, I would say it's certain circumstances where it makes the game unplayable.
Yeah.
Like audio, grenades like bouncing like 30 times down a hallway, then landing right next to you. Like, there's this. When certain like streamers like Smitty, for example, right? Like everyone's bashing to 90% unplayable. Like I've been seeing it a lot.
Oh, okay. I think I saw him tweet something like that. Yeah.
So the only reason he said that was because there's a lot of circumstances where the game is unplayable. Yeah. Like having a rogue shoot you through a warehouse.
Yeah.
And you don't know where it's at, and it's just constantly shooting you. Like there's nothing to do against that. It's just unplayable, right? Like, and he was just saying that it's more unplayable this wipe than it was previous wipes.
Interesting.
And it's just because.
Why do you think that is?
Issues aren't being addressed. It's just the issues not being addressed, and there's more problems being layered on than there are being like fixed because we had problems previous wipe, and now inertia has brought even more.
Well, we've all died to it, right? Like the biggest thing that you could say was like kind of game breaking is it's happened to all of us multiple times. Like for example, Gluhar shoots one bullet, M61, hit counts for 3. Yeah. Now, this wipe for me, I have seen that like 5 times worse than previous wipes. Like it was apparent previous wipes, but it wasn't as like common as it has been this wipe. Yeah. The rogues are crazy for it. Like you'll hear them shoot one bullet and it sounds like 15 are just going straight at you. Yeah. And then you check the death screen, and boom, you're dead. That is, I know people from chat will probably have died to this countless times too. They've been like, wait, there's one bullet, but there's 5 hit count on my chest.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's things like that. Those bugs have been around for a while, and I think with the rogues being added to the game now, which are really, really cool, by the way, they've also got it, which is a bit of an issue. And knowing their AI being so strong, it can make for some frustrating problems. Like there's another thing too. Like for example, like the rogues, once they aggro you, there's a chance that rogues can stay aggroed on you 24/7 and just shoot through walls. And there's nothing you can do at all. They'll reload, just like you've seen it with Killer, right? In previous wipes, Killer's kind of done the same thing, but they'll just pen you straight through walls and stuff, man. It's
dude, kind of frustrating. In that raid, in my last raid before we started this, when I killed Gluhar, I peeked a doorway and one of the guards saw me and aggroed onto me. And I sat there with my hands off my keyboard, and from outside the building, he was reloading and he was just shooting at me through the wall. Boom, 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 boom. Exactly reload, boom, 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 boom. And I was like, I'm gonna let this go because I want this clip. Like I want to send this to Veritas so we can send it to Nikita. You know what I mean? And then I was like, I have to wait for a reload. I waited for a reload. I peeked the corner and I killed him. And then we even did some extra science. I was like, how many mags does he have and how many bullets are left? Because he reloaded 6 times and he had 3 mags and only one of them was empty. And I was like, okay, you know. So Hyper, that's actually a really good, once again, your description immediately shifted, at least me, from like a defensive state to like, yeah, you're absolutely right. Like the whole unplayable, I think, unplayable broken, I always try to remember that comes from a place a lot of times of just like the gamer rage, right? Like the mauled of dying either to this bug over and over and over again or to this stupid thing over and over and over again. Like I said, I'm this happy-go-lucky positive guy, and I'm still saying I hate this game on a regular basis, right? And so when we tweet that, I think it catches me and I'm like, what do you freaking mean? Like I love this game. I'm having fun playing this game. But a really good way to put that is exactly, there are certain circumstances where it really is unplayable. Like there are some times where you die where you were like, there was nothing I could have done there. And there wasn't nothing I could have done there because I made a mistake. Like there was nothing I could have done there because of a bug. Something out of my control completely took away that experience for me, and there was nothing I could do. And in some way, that's kind of the definition of unplayable. Like in that moment, there was I lost all agency as the player. And I think you also helped me define, because actually another thing that I was going to say, you actually kind of helped me define there, Hyper, which was that like people keep saying that it's worse, like that the game is worse this wipe. And I'm like, and it depends on how you define it, because in some ways the game is infinitely better this wipe. There's a lot, they made a lot of good changes. And if you're looking at that way, high level, like maybe you haven't played in a while, you're like, the game is better. But to say the game is worse always rubs me the wrong way when people are like, it's worse than it's ever been. I'm like, man, what do you mean? But you're right when you think about it through that lens of the AI is still bad, the audio is still bad, there's still a few bugs, and now we have Inertia, which is buggy and the AI don't have, so that adds new problems. We have the rogues, which are like, you know what, we should give the broken AI 11 mounted machine guns. You know what I mean? And it's like, that adds all new problems as well.
Yeah.
So I think that that's a good way for me, at least, and I hope some of the people listening to this, to understand that thought process of how, depending on how you slice it, it is a little bit worse. And then there are definitely times where it's pretty unplayable, and we've all experienced that. I think at the end of the... No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, because like I see a lot of people like saying like my mindset and stuff is just not there, and that's why I'm like not growing as like a streamer and stuff like that. It's not because like it's my mindset. I'm not gonna tweet like every other day that I love this game.
Of course.
Like I stream the game every day. That's why I like, if I didn't like the game, I wouldn't stream it every day.
Yeah. I
simply just point out some people on Twitter where I just say, you know, like, you don't have to tweet that you have to love the game every other week.
Yeah.
Like, you stream it as well. Like, you obviously...
Yeah. Uh-oh.
Oh, he's lagging.
We lost your video.
It's not good. That's not good. All right, well, he's gone. I can cover it. So another thing to add to that, could I just say if I can?
Yeah.
So like what you've just said, I completely agree with, man. It's a bit of both, right?
Yeah.
This wipe has changed for the better, but it also has changed for the worse in some aspects. So I wouldn't say the game's completely unplayable, but there is mechanics there that make it unplayable. So like the best way to give an example
we can
of
hear
this
you,
is like
Hyper.
I think
My
good, man.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. So I think like early wipe, BSG did an amazing job at like trying to preserve early game feel.
Yeah.
And make it so people can't just get BP day one, M6 to M61, and just, you know what I mean? Set the meta straight off the way. They did an amazing job of that, and I think that's great for the game. Now, on the other hand, mid to late game kind of suffered pretty hard, in my opinion. And it's not because Inertia's bad, it's because Inertia has changed the way people take fights now.
Yeah.
Like I've never heard people talk about right side peaks as much as I have this wipe.
Yeah, me too, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's really, really common. And it's not that Inertia's bad, it's that it's solidified a meta where if you're not right side peaking against a semi-decent player, you're going to be you're going to be dead. You're going to be in the back in the stash, right?
Yep.
And that's where people like me and Hyper come from, is like that perspective of like, it's kind of game breaking when you get to like towards the mid to end game.
Yeah.
Where you're kind of stuck in like a rhythm. Like, for example, Labs. Labs is a perfect example of like, pretty much to be like top tier player in Labs, you have to take advantage of like multiple mechanics. And half of them are like pretty much bugs, really. Like, audio abuse is crazy on Labs. Like, most of the good players, if you're not careful, they're gonna flank underneath you. You're not gonna hit them and kill you from underneath. And that's kind of like set a skill gap now around these things that are undeveloped. So yeah, that's just my point, really. I'm just trying to help you understand like the whole like Inertia thing. And to me, that's like the game breaking side of the game, I would say. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, if there's anything else you wanted to say, Hyper, like, I'm sorry you got cut off there.
No, it's fine. For some reason, my mic or my camera disconnected. But like I was saying, like, I just don't like. I just had to point out some stuff on Twitter recently, because like I know a lot of people seem I was hating the game, but like, I just got a little bit tired of the consistent like, oh, these people hate the game, they need to learn to adapt. It's like, it's not that we're hating on it. It's just that like
Yeah.
we're pointing out things that we've been pointing out for months on end, and it's just getting more and more frustrating.
Yeah.
You know?
For sure, man. And I think that's actually really, really good and really true. You know what I mean? Like, it's not, you don't have to always just like tweet out that you love the game, that it's the best game ever. I think it's hard because I tweeted about this. My tweet wasn't necessarily about like the Tarkov like drama. It was more just like, it's such a weird cycle of social media is just really good at filling our timelines with things that we love. And I love Tarkov. So a lot of Tarkov tweets and a lot of Tarkov stuff gets filled with my stuff. Any sort of negativity, whether it's justified or unjustified, is always rewarded with more engagement, because engagement is oftentimes other people being super toxic in the comments. And then that just can be draining to just see over and over and over and over again negativity. And so it's so hard to find the right place to throw out that constructive criticism. But I don't even represent a group of people that say, well, don't ever do that on Twitter. Like, I think you should, like you're saying, like you're allowed to just be frustrated. You're allowed to vent your frustrations on Twitter. It's just like, people
if you do it on Tarkov,
dude. But I don't even think it's Tarkov, man. I think it's every niche. It's just that Tarkov is all we see. You know what I mean? Like, I bet if Rust is the same, or CS:GO is the same, or Warzone's the same. Like, you know, go to the Warzone. You know, if you think cheating in Tarkov is bad, go to the Warzone subreddit, man. And it's like, it's like, I guess it's not just Tarkov. And so I think at the end of the day, it's just that, like, so far I've basically agreed with you guys on everything. And I think at the end of the day, it's always just that everybody hates when people call out something that they love, that I love. And a great example of this is, like, I was talking with Pestily on Twitter because he tweeted out something about how, like, all Tarkov YouTube highlight titles are like super cringe. It's all the same ones over and over again. And I kind of addressed that in my tweet, and then he responded, and I was like, man, you know what? When I think about it, I actually agree with him. I just get defensive when somebody, like, I love YouTube. I love studying YouTube. I love studying YouTube trends and the algorithm and what titles work, what titles don't, what thumbnails work, what thumbnails don't. So even though, like, if it was over coffee and we were talking about it, I would agree with him. When I saw it on Twitter, I immediately got defensive and I got frustrated. And I was like, whatever, man. It's easy for you to say. You have 600,000 subscribers. You know, all that stuff was going on in my head. But I agreed with him. And so I think you guys catch a lot of that. Where if you tweet something like, yo, the game's in the worst spot it's ever been because of these bugs, or this is happening, a lot of people that might even agree with you are just frustrated. You know what I mean? And then they take that frustration out on Twitter, which is never a good thing, and it spirals. But I agree with. So back to that question was around like, is the game being unplayable and the game being quote unquote broken. And I really do think that's a good definition, and I really do agree. Like, you know what I mean? Some of the stuff that I complain about a lot, the AI, the sound, that is, I mean, some of those situations really are the definition of unplayable. So, to kind of switch it up a little bit, like what are some of the things that came with this wipe that you really enjoyed? Like specifically in 12.12.
Well, for me, the biggest thing, man, was just the fact that, like, they're trying to restrict how available, like, the best in slot rounds was. Now, this could be just my bias, and I can be completely wrong here, but I think it's unhealthy that you can buy, like, the best in slot rounds, like M61, because they make every armor obsolete. Altons, Reese's, Slicks. You get 2-tap by that. You know what I mean? And they removed that from the trader. Oh, no, they didn't. M61's still in. But ammos like SMB. SMB is very strong, right? They removed that this wipe. They removed a few other rounds too, right, Hyper? Would you be able to buy AP ammo?
Yeah, you can't buy AP, you can't buy Lapua, you can't buy, like, anything that can pen anything from class 5 to 6 you can't buy right now.
Yeah.
I like that they're trying to restrict that ammo. I think that's good.
What do you think about that, Hyper? What the restriction of ammo, but not even that. Like, I want to hear what both of you guys think about the flea market changes of restricting the purchase and selling of armors, helmets, guns, and ammos.
I think the ban is super, super good, because I think what BSG went for this wipe was slowing down the game, right?
Yeah.
Like, obviously making it where everybody can play a longer period of time and face, lower end gear instead of this like facing an alt and slick at like 3 to 4 days in the wipe, like how it usually has been. And it was a great addition. Like it was. It took them time to slowly ban some rounds. Like I know SNB got like 3 weeks in the wipe without being banned. And then I started pointing it out, and I'm like, hey, yo, start sucking up on SNB because SNB is going to ban it. And then what happened? They banned it like 2 days later.
Yep.
And then it was definitely a great addition, but I feel like some of the problems with that addition are the trader stocks. So the trader stocks are selling out within not like seconds now. Like it used to be like a crate, like a really good stock. And then once more people started unlocking it, it's becoming like instantly. It's just slicks are gone in like seconds.
Oh yeah, I haven't been able to do that part.
Armors are gone. Yeah, like the stocks definitely need to be looked at now, in my opinion.
Yeah, and another thing to touch on that I think is really good. You guys probably saw Rengawr's video on slicks, right?
Yeah.
For the longest time, I've always thought the same way. Like if you ever watch my stream and I'm playing labs, I'm always running tier 4 armor, and it's not because the tier 6 armor is bad. It's because the odds of the armor actually saving you in these fights with the ammos that are used is just, it's so slim. And now that the tier 6 armors are so rare, it's never really worth using them. Like, for example, Zabralo. Zabralo is actually a great armor, I think, in the game right now. If you've got max strength. Now, if you don't have max strength, you're in trouble because you're just going to be overweight, super clunky. And that armor actually saves you. And I think for me, the biggest thing that I'm not too much of a fan of was, you know, when they changed the limbs last wipe, the damage distribution across limb, that to me is the biggest change Tarkov's ever had. That completely changed the game for me. Like, you get absolutely melted now by like some of the worst rounds.
Shotguns, bro. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's Flechette, man.
It's nuts. It's nuts. Nuts. And exactly, these conversations get so slippery because everything in Tarkov, it's all spaghetti. It all touches something else. Absolutely right. Yeah. They make the damage distribution bug and they fix that, and that might be good for the game. But then they didn't realize how OP. Maybe previously shotguns were super underpowered. So when the flesh damage bug was in the game, the damage didn't propagate properly. Maybe shotguns were underpowered. So they buffed the flesh damage of shotgun rounds. And then they fixed this bug, and now shotguns are crazy. And it's like there's always a thing. There's always a thing that gets touched by it that now for this is my favorite example. I've been saying this every day. For less than you can purchase a water bottle from Therapist, you can get a double barrel shotgun. And, you know, 2 rounds of Flechette, and you can take down basically anybody, you know what I mean?
Anyone. Anybody. Which balance-wise is kind of crazy, right? Like, and the person that's taking that gear and is not risking anything. So
exactly. And when you win, all you get is a double barrel that you can sell for 4,000 rubles. Now, rolling back a little bit to the flea market changes. First of all, I think you probably both just exploded a bunch of people's heads that you said that you liked that change. Once again, from the perspective of the more casual gamer, the perception is always that you guys want to be able to have access to everything meta, every raid all the time. And to hear you guys say like, I like that direction, but maybe it needs some tweaking, or like, you know what I mean? S&B was still up, so you were buying that and using that. You guys are going to use every advantage available to you, but that doesn't mean you think it should be in the game. And I think that's a big thing people need to understand, because at the end of the day, it's a game, right? And you want to be competitive, and you don't want to die to somebody else using SNB, and you're not using SNB on principle. So, you know what I mean? It's always, and I always say that, man, when I die to somebody doing some like uber meta Chad, like jump free look flick thing, I'm always like, hey, don't hate the player, hate the game. That dude's winning, and it's not his fault that that's in the game, and he wants to min-max it. Don't hate the player, hate the game. And so first of all, I think it's crazy and cool to see that you guys agreed with that change, because I don't know if you guys know this, but 8 months before the wipe, I made a video and I was like, they should remove all armors, ammo, and guns from the flea market. And like the comment section was like wild. Everyone's like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. You know what I mean? And and then they did something similar, not all the way. But yeah, and then to what you were saying, Tigz, about like Class 6 armor, it's crazy to think that, right? From a video game mechanic, like if you think about like an RPG, the whole point is to get better gear, to do better things, to get better gear, to do better things. So when you think about Tarkov, like Labs is, you know, the end game map, right? Like Labs is, that's kind of the point. The secret underground bunker, only raiders, 100%. No player scavs, loot everywhere. That's what it is. To get in. And you don't want to bring your best gear. You got 14 slick armors. It's, you know, great. you don't want to bring it. That to me shows that there's some imbalance, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think
100%.
it boils back, we roll it back one more layer, boils back to ammo. If you only ran into M6, if you only ran into M61 once or twice a week because it was like ultra rare, maybe you'd bring that slick in, you know what I mean? But you're like, everybody I'm going against is going to be using their best. And that means there might be using M61 or whatever. And it's like, you're exactly right. Like armor isn't, like to M61, there is no armor. You just, you know what I mean? So I agree. And it's interesting to see that. What do you guys think like about the availability of the current armors and ammos, and like what would you guys like to see changed?
You want to go first up, or shall I go first?
Yeah, so I feel like why I complain, like you'll probably, if you go to my stream sometimes, I'll often complain about the M62 BP meta or the 762 overall meta. It's just because it's so common from Lighthouse Rogues and Raiders that you can, like, I had over 6 boxes of BP just from farming Lighthouse for this like 2 weeks straight.
Yeah.
Like 6 boxes. Like that's gonna take so long to go through. Plus if I keep doing it, I'm just gonna farm more and more boxes, and I'm using BP as well. Like to me, like that's why I have so much problem with the meta, because it's just BP is on edge of, you know, it destroys every armor except for class 6, and same with M62.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's so hard to get your hand on a slick, and nobody uses slick, that practically you're gonna 2-shot everybody you find anyway.
Yeah.
So M62 and BP are just the perfect bullets in the game right now.
Yeah. And even if you get it tier 6, it's not like the armor's going to do anything, because let's face it, most of your deaths in this game are either arm shots now or headshots, right? Like with how strong flesh damage is and like the damage distribution changes, like it's very rare for slick to me that does much. Unless you use like a Zabralo or something like that. So yeah, I completely agree.
So would you guys say that the M62 BP meta is more because the availability of those rounds, or the like damage of those rounds? Like, I guess another way to phrase that question is like, do you think that the response should be like, do you think they should nerf those rounds, or do you think nerfing the availability of those rounds basically accomplishes the goal? Because like, you do want to have good rounds in the game, you just don't want to run into them every freaking raid.
Yeah. The rounds are fine. I just feel like the availability, because if you notice M62, M6, like people will sometimes run M80 because their M62 like comes low, right? Like you're not gonna always get an M62 raider, but there's so many like BP raiders. There's so many different ones, right? You got the AK one, you got the small AK, you got the I think there's another different AK variant that has BP as well, or has a chance of getting
the stock AKM will have it, and the super kitted AK-104 will have it.
And then you have cultists that have it, and then you have scavs that have it. So there's just so much BP. Not only that, you can craft it and you can buy it. Yeah. So you can craft it, buy it, get it from Lighthouse Rogues.
I don't know how that slipped through the cracks, man. That's crazy.
There's so much BP out there that you can consistently run it every raid. You know, there's no way of you not running BP. And if you want to be conservative about it, you can just take an SKS with BP and, you know, one-shot people in the head, because it's a 50-50 chance of one tapping an Alton.
Yep. Or even like a Vepr, you know what I mean? And you can just like throw a scope on it, and it's still BP. Yeah.
I definitely think availability is probably the biggest issue with these rounds.
The availability.
But I also this is probably just my take. It's probably bad, but I do think a lot of rounds in Tarkov are just way too overpowered too. Like there's like, for example, if you look at the Val rounds, right? They're insane.
Oh my god,
yeah, the Val rounds are disgusting.
And like no one uses the Val pretty much, right? Because it's just gone now. Like the meta, when it was its meta, I think it nerfed 7 times in total. And it's like the rounds are absolutely insane, but the gun's so expensive to build. The magazines are crazy expensive. Like I feel like those types of guns are just completely unbalanced now. Like I've said to Hyper so many times, why would you ever run 5.56 over BP or M62?
Yeah.
The ammo's way more available. You can get it all the time. The gun's recoil is way better. The gun build itself is cheap. You know, it's way cheaper. And it's like M4s and HKs and stuff. Their ammo isn't even that good, and their recoil's really bad too. You know.
Yeah.
The availability is you never find 55A1. Like, where's 55A1? Like, you find
it's always M855.
Super rarely you can find it on rogues and raiders, but like it's like you're saying, comparative to how much you can find BP, you're absolutely right. Yep. I've done raids with a duo where I'm still walking out of a lighthouse raid with like 300 rounds of BP shoved up my butt. You know what I mean? It's like, it's crazy. So, but that's an interesting point, Tigz, where, because I agree. I don't think necessarily BP and M62 needs sweeping nerfs to the ammo. I think the availability changes things, but there are some instances where you'd flip that. I had never thought about that until just now, but you're absolutely right. I would much rather have the old Val, but with trash ammo than the other way around, than this god tier ammo that I have and in a Val that I can't, 2 feet away from me, it's still, if I'm crouched and you're 2 feet away from me, I still can barely hit you because the recoil is crazy. You know what I mean? So it's like people always used to I love triggering people that love to min-max thing and go meta. So I loved using the Val even when it was at its best with SP5. I loved using it. SP5, and people are like, dude, why are you using that garbage ammo? Why are you using that garbage ammo? And that was the wipe, dude. There was this brief time where it was an overlap. The Vector was in the game. The 9mm Vector was first game in the game. And everybody was saying that PvP, which used to be 7N39 or whatever, everyone was saying it was OP, it was OP, it was OP, it was OP. Yeah. And then I'd run the Val with SP5 and they'd be like, don't use that garbage ammo. I was like, the difference between these two rounds is SP5 has 1 less pen and 5 more damage.
Yeah. And then the RPM.
But you're telling me it's garbage only because it's the 4th best in the stack. You know what I mean? And so it's crazy. So I never thought about that, but yeah, I definitely agree that there are some instances where I'd almost like to reverse that, where I'd like to make the gun better and the ammo worse, and it would still be more fun, because then that places the skill back on the player. Because at the end of the day, a good player with bad ammo will beat a bad player with good ammo most of the time, on average, right? Like everyone gets one tapped out of nowhere where the guy hits a shot. But if you guys square up, you're underground and reserve, or you're on labs, and a newbie to the game has a gun that has M61 but has crazy recoil, you're going to be able to outposition him. You're going to be able to outflick him. You're going to be able to out-aim him. And if you've got a gun, you know what I mean, like an MP7 subsonic. I think you made a video about that, Tigz. I did as well.
Yeah, it's really good.
You can outplay those guys. And so I'd love to see that a little bit with the Val as well, because then when you die to a guy with MP7 subsonic, you're kind of just like, yo, GG's. You know what I mean? You're not like, subsonics is OP, right? You know what I mean? Yeah. So we could get that a little bit with the Val. Too. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%, and I agree. And that there's a lot of guns like that now. Like I feel like the meta, the past 2 wipes has been pretty much mutant, right? AK-103, and I think it's been good, but like when they made that auto recoil compensation change, it just wiped out so many guns.
The stats just don't matter anymore on guns.
Yeah, it just wiped them out, man.
Something I definitely agree. Something I was for them adjusting the recoil. I was pro, like let's make it so guns aren't super laser beamy. You know what I mean? Like let's make it, let's make it a little bit harder to aim. But unfortunately, whatever they did on the back end did not display to the player. So the player, if you've played in past wipes, maybe you skipped a wipe, now you come back to Tarkov, there is no feedback for you as the player as to what's changed, and it did not affect all the guns evenly. And so I don't know what the hell happened. And because I don't know what the hell happened, I don't know how to fix it either, because I don't necessarily just want to revert it back. But now more than ever, those numbers are meaningless. 32 vertical recoil, that doesn't mean anything. The meta mutant has like 55 vertical recoil, and that junk feels better than a 32 vertical recoil M4 or a Vector or whatever. It's just, they're meaningless.
Yeah, the best comparison I like to put is a MPX versus a mutant. Like an MPX has way more recoil than a mutant, and
it's a bigger round,
which is dumb because it's an SMG. Those things are designed to have low recoil. You know what I mean? An MPX. Yep. Dude, I the other day, just to keep my crafting skill up, I have like 2,000 crafted rounds of 9mm AP, and I was like, yo, let's run a Vector. It's been a while. I took it into the hideout. I shot a 50 round mag. I just vendored it. I was like, nope, there's no way, dude. It's garbage.
That's how I feel, man.
That's so bad. How I feel, dude.
And that's not the best round too. If you put PvP on that, you've got even more recoil from the bullet, which is another interesting subject. How do you feel about the recoil addition to the guns. Because like you know, like some rounds have a +20, like the Val rounds. Do you like that? Like the actual recoil thing?
I have enjoyed using SB193 and P90s and subsonic and MP7s. Like I do like that. I do like that I'm using a worse round, but getting some sort of buff because of it. You know what I mean? Because I think it promotes ammo variety. Maybe if I'm going factory, I'll take APSX or FMJ because I'm close enough that I don't really need the recoil. I want the stopping power. But maybe if I'm going shoreline and I don't know where I'm going to spawn, I'll take the subsonic. But I don't, but at the same time, if they were going to rework recoil, I wouldn't mind if they got rid of it and gave us a whole better system. You know what I mean? So
for sure, 100%. Like you said with subsonic, like that's the only way you can really use MP7 effectively. I feel like right now.
Yeah.
And then there is drawbacks with it too. Like it's a subsonic round, it's slow, and you have to hit your headshots. And it is rewarding you for hitting your headshots, but if you don't, you're in trouble, right? So
I think
I do like that too.
9mm PST GZH should have like -20 recoil. Because you can't buy AP, you can't buy PvP. You have to craft them both. They're really expensive, and all the guns have terrible recoil. You know what I mean? Like give me 9mm PST GZH with like minus that ammo's trash. But give me like -25 vertical recoil, and I'll run around with an MP5 SD and still have fun with it at least. You know what I mean? Like
100%.
Okay, so another ammo related thing. I want to hear your guys' thoughts on this because this stuff, it's probably semantics, but it pisses me off, dude. For many wipes now, everybody's been saying that 5.45 sucks. It's garbage. Don't use 5.45. And then now we've got 5.56. 5.56 is garbage. Don't use it. Do you guys think that 5.56 and 5.45 are garbage? Or do you just think that 7.62 VP, M61, M62 are so available that once again, do 5.45 and 5.56 need a buff? Or do the other rounds just need to be less available, thus promoting more ammo variety? Because I love 5.45 and 5.56, but I can love it knowing it's just not as good as 7.62 VP, but I still slay out with it.
I think what it is that there's so much availability of 7.62.
Yeah.
And the guns just overall feel better and more reliable. Now, when you use something like 5.45 or 5.56, the ammo is so unreliable and the gun has so bad stats.
Yeah.
That it's just the bullet's doing no damage. And then second, the gun is just kicking like a mile in the air.
Yeah.
Like I would rather have my gun kick a mile in the air, but the gun or the bullet do damage than it do no damage and kick a mile in the air, you know? So that's why I tell everyone, don't stress out and use an unreliable gun with an unreliable bullet. They use something that's like, maybe an unreliable gun, but a reliable bullet that will actually do something.
Yeah.
My take on that, I agree. It's kind of like both ways actually. So the best example I can give for this is like 11.7, I think, was when M4s and HKs literally had no recoil. And I'll be honest, it was kind of silly that they had that little of recoil, but it still required you to hit your shots, right? You had to hit the headshot. If you didn't hit the headshot, you're talking like 13 hit count in the thorax.
Yeah.
Which round again? It was balanced in a way. 5.5A1.
Okay, yeah.
Or 9.95, either or.
Yeah.
And so that to me was like very balanced in terms of those guns because you would trade off one, so it would be super expensive, but it'd be very low recoil, and you had to hit headshots. Or you could opt for the other choice, use 7.62 M61 or M62, and just thorax people, right?
Yeah.
Now, in the way it is, I feel like 5.56 is absolutely terrible. Super hard to get your hands on. Not even worth using because of the recoil changes with guns.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's pretty much it. 5.45 on the other hand, though, I love 5.45. I think 5.45 is good.
I do as well. I think... Go ahead, Hyper.
Was it one more thing? One more small thing. So like the new bullet velocity changes as well. If someone's like wearing like a U-lock, for example, it won't one-shot past 100 meters. So it just made those rounds even more unreliable than they were in the past.
And so I think that's exactly where I come in and agree with you guys. Like, and I just want that to be. I'm so scared of BSG sometimes that I don't want them to hear the wrong community outcry because then they'll fix the wrong thing. That's why I'm like, is 5.56 broken or is the damage fall off broken and the recoil broken and the price of the attachments broken? You know what I mean? Like if the gun was cheaper, had better recoil, and the damage drop off wasn't that bad, is it a bad round? You know what I mean? And so because like yesterday I was using an M4 and somebody was like, 5.45 or 5.56 sucks, and I was like, dude, let's do this. I pulled up Battle Buddy and to an unarmored target to the stomach, I went to the stomach because like everything to an unarmored target, almost everything is a 2-tap to the thorax. You know what I mean? Like, so to the stomach, I was like, 7.62 BP killed in 1 round faster than 5.5A1. It took 1 less shot. And traditionally, 5.56 guns like the HK or the M4 are going to have a higher fire rate. So we're talking an incredibly minimal time to kill difference. And then if you go on Battle Buddy and you slap like a Gazelle on or insert whatever class 5 armor, you know what I mean? The 7.62 BP zeroes that armor out in 1 to 2 more shots than 5.5A1 right now. And so like, once again, and the 5.5A1 gun is most likely going to shoot faster. So I was like, I'm not saying like technically like on paper, you're right. 5.56. I was talking to chat. Like on paper, you're right. 5.56, 5.5A1 is worse than 7.62 BP. I'm not saying you're wrong, but what the story I'm hearing is 5.5A1 is garbage and BP is great. And I'm like, the delta is not that big. You know what I mean? It's this big. If you eliminate those other things, like we were saying, the recoil of the M4s are much more unreliable than the recoils on the mutants. The damage drop off, you know what I mean? In the beginning of the wipe, there was hit reg issues. I was trying to do Shooterborn in Heaven with an 8R on Shoreline, hitting a guy 11 times, ricochet. I was like, dude, what the hell's happening? You know what I mean? So, but those are fixed. So it's just one of those things where like, I feel like everybody, you know, people want there to be a best and everything else to be the worst. And it's not that simple. Oh, and then the other thing is like 5.56 has some things going against it in the damage drop off, the price of the gun, the recoil, and then like Hyper saying, BP is just so available. So I think it's an unfair comparison that yes, this round is 5 to 10% better. It's 5 to 10% better, 1,000 times more available, and this round you have to put up with a bunch of other bullcrap to get to. So I always just like to clarify that because like I don't want BSG to come in and just tune up 5.5A1, give it 5 more pen and 10 more damage. You still wouldn't use it, right? Because the M4 still feels bad.
Yeah, the recoil. Yeah, the recoil. Yeah, that's like a big thing of it. Yeah, for sure.
So I don't want them. So I always like to talk. Just make sure I clarify that because it's like. Going back to what we said earlier, like, man, think about how much the game, how much better the game would feel if, you know, M62, M61, 7.62 BP were as hard to get as 5.5A1.
Yeah, it would be better.
Something as simple as that would increase weapon diversity, ammo diversity, and it would just be everybody would more 5.45. Yeah.
Yeah. The reason
fun raids too.
Sure. Yeah, the reason that we saw so much weapon diversity in like 12.8, for example, I don't know if many people played back then, but the meta on labs was crazy. It was like MP7, FAL, AS Val, it was M4, HK, AKM. Like there was so many diversities because the meta was like the higher bullet you went or the bigger bullet you went, the shittier the gun felt, but it would kill faster.
Oh.
But if you use something in between, so it was like a MP7 would have no recoil, but it was fast fire rate, and it did, you know, good damage or mediocre damage and mediocre pen. And then you would upgrade to like an HK, right? Like it had like low damage, but it was incredibly laser beamy, and it was, you know, the gun felt good. And then you would move something up to like a FAL, right? That had like pretty bad ergo.
Yeah.
But the round was crazy good. Like, you know. And obviously the FAL was way too broken. Obviously it needed a nerf.
Ridiculous, man.
But I feel like if they just toned more of the guns, like the FAL and the AS Val and stuff like that, it would definitely have been like the perfect balance because there was a reason to use those guns, you know? You would use the lower calibers because they were lower recoil and they did, you know, less damage and stuff, but the guns just felt better.
Man, that is so interesting. You know, that's actually, I really had never thought about that, but you're so right. And it was one of those things where it was balanced in the wrong way. It was balanced in the way where any of one of us could purchase any of those guns, any of those attachments, any of those ammos on the flea market whenever we wanted. The availability was too high. But right now, the availability is too high of very specific things, and that creates very specific problems. Back then, the availability was too high for everything, so everyone ran everything. So it's like I wish that they could take that 12.8 and like you said, maybe tune a few specific things. I think the HK was a little overtuned back then. Like I hated that the M4s and the HK were the best gun in the game at everything. It was a better DMR It was a better SMG. You know what I mean? Like you could take it close range, medium range, long range. You could, dude, back in the day, you could full auto with a Voodoo zoomed in. You know what I mean? And you could hit most of your shots. So I think, but I think if we go back to 12.8, maybe tune down the HK just a tad, tune down the FAL just a tad. If there's a way we can find that, but bring that down to kind of where we are now, where like the availability of everything is equal. Because the availability was equal then, it's not equal now, and because of that, what's more available will always get used. If we can make the availability equal again, because I saw glimpses of that this wipe, where like I can only buy 120 rounds of SB193, I can only buy a few rounds of 55A1, I can only buy a few rounds of this. So I was I thought this is gonna be the wipe, fam. Like I was stocking up on everything because I was preparing for a Tarkov where I had to switch up what gun I was using a lot because I don't have everything. And I think that would have been good, but for sure. But all you have to do is farm Lighthouse and you get an unlimited amount of BP. So why not just run? And if you have tier 4 traders, like you can build AKMs for 160,000 rubles that are only a few percentage points away from a mutant. You've got six ammo cases of BP. Well, now there's no reason to run my 193, my 55A1 that I was saving up for this perfect storm. So,
like AK's weapon's like really, really good. And the one thing I like about like ARs not being as common is like the fact that semis are actually like popular now. Like semis were never really used too much before, right? Like you have the occasional M1A, but other than that, man, like no one really used them, and now they are pretty common, which is cool.
Yeah, the M1A was the flex back in the day. It was like there was no reason to use an M1A over a FAL, but you did it because you knew you were giving yourself a disadvantage and you could still win, and that just felt good. You know what I mean? Like the M1A was the flex. But yeah, dude, 100%. Hyper, I never really thought about that. How weirdly, even though you could buy everything at all time, that was the closest we've had to balance.
Yeah. What is it too? Another thing that caused the imbalance, and a lot of people don't see it, but it was the 5 added head HP to Raiders.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people don't realize that, but
stuff,
that
dude.
killed a lot of guns. Like, for example, the MP7 completely removed from labs. You don't see anybody run MP7 on labs because you have to double headshot every single Raider now. Yeah. You don't see 545 barely on labs anymore because you have to double headshots. You barely see 556 anymore because you have to double headshots. The only thing you see on labs now is this MDR, Mutant, anything 7.62 and above. That's all you see on labs.
Yep.
And maybe some like new player with like a 9mm or maybe a 556 MDR. But like
and then that typically the meta, right?
Yeah,
with,
this wraps the meta of this. It signifies more of the 7.62 meta, solidifying it to the point of where everyone is just using it. Everyone is just taking the ammo and stuffing it in their ass.
Yep.
And then they use the next rate and it continues on and it becomes like a constant problem of just 7.62 rolling and
I thought the same thing in reverse when they were like they did that little weird secret change where they made regular scavs. The later in the raid you could get like a god tier regular scav with more HP. I was like, man, now people are gonna think 545 and 556 suck even worse because they're gonna headshot, that scav. They're not going to kill it. They're going to clip it and put it on Reddit, and everybody's going to be like, yeah, 556 sucks, 545 sucks. I agree, man. I really do. I think I can kind of get away with bosses. Like, you know what I mean? At the end of the day, it's a game, and bosses, I personally think that bosses, I think it would be better if maybe bosses had like unlootable armors because it just feels, dude, Sanitar, that dude sucks. No armor and no helmet, so there's no reward for me killing him, right? Just like if he had an unlootable chest armor and an unlootable helmet, it would be functionally the same as what we have right now, because when you kill him, you don't have armor or helmet to loot. But it just feels, I just get mad when I headshot that dude 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then he falls over dead. You know what I mean? If he had a helmet on, it would just make me feel better about my life. You know what I mean? Like, but anyways, but I can kind of see that with bosses. But with regular scavs and raiders and rogues, I think a better balance is just balancing the AI better instead of buffing their health, because I'd never considered that, how much that affects the meta of wanting to be able to one-tap AI.
Yeah, it was like it's the same change that they did with the Thorax, for example, right? They gave the Thorax 5 extra HP because there was people just running Mosin on labs with SNB and one-shotting people with slicks.
Yeah.
Like, you would see some naked guy, like, there was an old guy, his name was Narcotics, he used to stream this game a lot. But the only thing he would do, he would just run labs with a Mosin, and he would just challenge these like, you know, Giga Chads with like Alton and Slicks, and he would just one-shot them and make clips of it. Like these small little changes can completely change the meta. Like a simple 5 HP can simply just change it all.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yep. No, for sure.
It's the same with the Raider head HP. It has completely removed a lot of the guns from labs, and I feel like that's what like a huge problem is, because I think that maybe there should be like a multiplier for getting headshots, because like a single stat of like 35 damage and then a Raider having 40 head HP, like, and it's not one shot it, like, you know, it feels bad when you headshot it and it just doesn't die.
Yeah. That would actually be an interesting way to do it. That would be an interesting way to buff the health of the AI, but still make them one-tappable. Because, like, basically, like, in the game, a fragmentation chance, which, like, it's bugged and it's weird, but when you get a fragment, it's essentially a critical hit. It does more damage. And so if you applied a similar logic to, like, you know, headshots against AI always do like a 1.2, you know what I mean? You get the 20% damage boost if you headshot them. It means they can make their HP a little bit tankier if they want to, but it still retains a lot of the one-tap potential. If you're good enough to hit that shot, you should be able to drop them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
That'd be an interesting way to do it. But yeah, so I think like, so what is ideal? So we've kind of touched on this, but I'd love to hear once again described from you guys, because I think people think that the PvP chads just want to be able to run M61 24/7. What would gun balance look like to you? Like in a world where, like, and not calling back to like 12.8, even though that might be the closest thing we've had. What's like perfect gun balance to you? Like including availability? Is it just being able to use a bunch of different guns and be equally as effective? Is it wanting there to be guns that are always more effective but also more rare? Like how flat do you want that curve to be?
Like I think that's good. Like so, like Lapua, for example, like that's prime example of a gun that's OP, right?
Yes.
You got your hands on Lapua and AP ammo, no one stands a chance, and it's a sniper too, so you got range. And it's still really good close range. Guns, like I think Lapua in terms of rarity is actually in a great spot. You only find it from marked rooms and doing the quest, right?
Yeah.
With Sherman. So guns like that, I think they should be more rare, because when you do get them, they're more rewarding to use because of how strong they are. But they're not so available that they just completely stomp the entire meta of everyone running them.
Yep.
Similar to how the mutant is now. Like, it's not that the mutant's like OP. It's I think the ammo's too available, and the lack of other guns like M4, HK, I don't know, Val VSS. These full auto assault rifles just aren't even close in terms of like how good these guns are compared to them. So I don't know. I feel like that'd be a cool way to do it, is put like the really good guns at the top, but make more equal guns decent, you know? It's like early wipe. You go through the game, right? Like I'm pretty sure BP spawns like crazy and BT ammo. You get an AK-74 or an AK-103. That's it. You're good to go. You can two-tap anybody with BP. You know what I mean? And it's like that's to me is a bit of an issue. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah.
I feel like 2 is highly of like how does a gun feels. Like a gun can have bad stats, but if it feels good, you know, you want to run it. Like the BP on paper looks like it would have a lot of recoil and looks like it would have, you know, okay stats and maybe a little bit more on the bad side. But when you actually run it, it feels super good. The HK, it looks like it has bad ergo, but really good recoil. So on paper, it looks really good to spray. But then you spray it and you're like, wow, this is terrible. You know, like I feel like the satisfaction of using a gun, it comes down to people wanting to run it. Now, a great example is the Val, right? Like the Val has super good stats on paper.
Yeah.
And then and the ammo. So you're like, whoa, crazy damage. You know, it's a close range gun. This is perfect close range. And then you run it and you're like, I killed this guy in 3 bullets, but my gun kicked like 3 feet in the air. Like, you know? It just doesn't feel good to use. And that's what like makes people not want to run it.
Yeah.
One second, I'm getting a call. Sorry.
You're fine.
But yeah, overall, like your question was like, how would you balance all guns?
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like the ammo is like the biggest thing, right? Like 5.56 and 9mm are just way worse than 7.62, right?
Yeah.
By 39 or by 51. Those rounds are just way up there. Like they're super strong, and they do have recoil on those guns, but overall, those rounds are really good. 5.56, 9mm, 5.45. It's not that they're bad rounds. It's just that they're not as good as these other guns are.
Yeah.
And those guns themselves need to be, in my opinion, like the base recoil or something needs to be buffed.
Yeah.
So they're at least competitive at something. Like you said with the MP7, right? If you're going to run subsonic, you have to hit the headshots.
Yeah.
So it adds that variety, but you have to make sure you hit headshots. And that's kind of how I see like the HK and the M4.
Yeah.
The Val's a little bit of a hard one because that thing is kind of OP with the ammo.
Yeah.
Like Ash 12, like I'm surprised how many people running Ash 12 this swipe. That gun is ridiculous, man. Like
it's
one taps tier 4, and I'm pretty sure it can one tap tier 5 sometimes.
It's
right?
nuts. Yep.
It's crazy, man.
104 flash damage. Dude, that's interesting. Like, I wonder what this wipe would feel like. It wouldn't be balanced, but I wonder, because what you said, Hyper, about feeling, that's all I've been telling people anymore. When people are like, what gun should I use? I'm like, do not look at the stats. Go into an offline raid or go into your hideout and shoot it. And if it feels good, use it. That's it, bro. That's the final word. It is feeling. It's the mutant has the best feeling, like 7.62, those guns feel good, even though it says 55, 57 vertical recoil, like they feel controllable, and they have the ammo that's available. Like imagine if 7.62 BP was as available as 5.5A1 and that was flipped. Imagine you were finding 5.5A1 everywhere, but you had to put it in a gun that didn't feel good. And then the mutant felt good, but you couldn't find the ammo anywhere. Like that would be interesting because at the end of the day, I think this is what you're alluding to, Tigz, is there should be a give and a take. There should always be something. Yeah. If I'm going to use a FAL, and which is what you brought up, Hyper, back in the day, there was always a give and take. I love the MP7 is great, but I have to hit my shots. The FAL has no ergo and it kicks like a truck, but all I got to do is hit him 3 times. That's what we want, is this give and take of being able to, and then it just gives you agency on like, how do I want to play? You know what I mean? If I want to play tight corners aggressive, I'm going to bring that MP7. You know what I mean? If I want to play long range, you know what I mean? Or if I want to, and rifles, assault rifles always should be the middle ground. They always should be, but that's my problem, is like the assault rifle should be the jack of all trades, master of none. And it always felt like they were the best at everything. You know what I mean? The HK, the M4, they were just like, they were laser beams. The 5.56 used to fly really flat and really far. And so it was just like, why use anything else? You know what I mean? So they should always be kind of better at both, but it shouldn't be as, you know what I mean? The curve should be there.
Well, do you remember the wipe where like, Landmark was like always playing labs and using SA58.
Yes.
That wipe at the start, everyone was just running HKs and M4s. I didn't see any M4s or HKs as soon as Landmark started using the SA. Like, because that thing was just zero recoil and it was just absolutely not. It was crazy, right?
Yeah.
And I like Nikia did that buff, didn't he? This wipe on Twitter, and I think it put SA58 not good, but it made it viable enough to use. And I think that's what they need to do with more guns. They need to make the base guns more viable to use, but then that kind of ties into realism and how they kick IRL. So it's kind of a weird subject, right?
Which honestly, I don't care about. I'd rather it just be balanced. I'd rather it be fun and balanced, and in some way, like the FAL should have no recoil, right? That thing is heavy and long and ridiculous, and like I don't know if you've ever felt a full 60-round mag of 5.56, let alone a 50-round mag of freaking 308. That's so heavy, dude. So it should, an SMG should fire faster and have lower recoil. So like I think we have enough realism. What I want now is balance, and I think that's what you guys want too. And I think,
I agree.
And I like that. Like I think it could be 2-tiered, because I hadn't thought about that, but you're absolutely right. The Lapua is perfectly balanced. It is an actual cannon. Like it's just you just don't stand a chance, but you know it's got crazy recoil, so if you're trying to spam somebody down, that's hard, and it's really hard to get, and it's really hard to get the ammo. So it's like I'd be down with like both. Like I think it is, because once again we're playing a video game, right? In video game world, you always want to like find the thing in the weapon crate, and you're like, oh, yo, like I found a 338 or I found a 308 MDR. Like I always want there to be some sort of top tier thing, as long as it's balanced with availability. But then stepping down from that, I think there should be, like you're saying, a multitude of choices that are viable, and that are balanced not only in feel and recoil, but also in availability. Because something that similar to what you said, Hyper, about like 5 extra head HP can massively change the meta. A difference of 5% in availability of a certain ammo can do the same thing. If 7.62 BP's even just a little bit more available, which right now it's a lot more available, it can throw it off and everybody uses it. So They have to dial it in, but if they can, it would just be fun.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that would help a lot. If they could get the gun balance better this wipe, I think that would help a lot with just retaining players in general, because it's like, I was bringing this topic up to my chat, is like, majority of people that play the game, their goal is to go for max traders, right? Go through the quest.
Yeah.
And then some states try and get Kappa, and then they, move on, come back for the next wipe. If they know that the meta is like, they're going to stream like, hey man, what's the best gun right now I can use? Probably going to say Mutant or, AK and after a while, those people are going to just start to get bored of using the same things. And that's where I think in previous wipes, it was very good for everybody. There was just so much variety of what you could use that was somewhat usable, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's what this wipe lacks a lot. And I think that's due to the recoil system and availability of ammo. For sure.
Because a lot of the same guns you just see is just like, a lot of high players you'll see either running AK, or mutants, and it's just the same builds. It's like just a voodoo meta AK. It's a voodoo mutant, or just SR25 with a voodoo. It's all like the same gun builds. You just do the same strip. You just take the suppressor scope, and then you unload all the mags, put it on your ass, and you move on. You don't see like the weird M4 builds that anyone does anymore.
Dude,
you don't see the weird builds. And when I see those builds, I'm like, damn, that looks interesting. Like maybe that is good. And then like I use it, and I'm like, wow, I see why it's people don't use it.
That is why, even though back in the HK supremacy days, I was an M4 guy, because the HK was definitely better than the M4, but not by that much. Like the M4 was still really good. And the reason I loved the M4 is I could build 5 different builds that looked aesthetically completely different, and they were all under 40 vertical recoil. And it worked, and I loved that. And I wish they would do that with attachments. I wish they would go through. Yeah. There's literally thousands of attachments in this gun, and I wish they would simplify them all, and they would all fall into a category of good, like bad, good, or great. Because then every gun would have more than one build. And it would just be interesting visually. You wouldn't be stripping the same things. You know what I mean? Like, it would just be cool, because when you think about a mutant can fit a lot of things, a lot of different buttstocks, a lot of different pistol grips, not a crazy ton, but 5, 6, 7 different foregrips. The foregrips, compensators. There's tons of different compensators up, because you got the 7.62 compensators, then you've got the 7.62 suppressors, then you've got the 308 compensators, then you've got the 308 suppressors. Even a gun like the Mutant has a lot of attachments, but there's one build: RSAS handguard, short barrel. You know what I mean? And so if we could rebalance all those attachments and make it so all of those things are either just bad, good, or great. Well, then it's like, as you level up, you're not using the bad ones anymore, you're using the good ones. And then once you get to the top, even when you get to the tippity top, you're not using the same build over and over again, and you're not running into the same build over and over again. And we could prioritize builds being like short builds being good versus long builds being good, because then the short build, you can maybe do clear dorms with a shorty M4. I love doing that. But then if you're out on woods, or if you're out on shoreline, you want the long barrel because you might see somebody farther away. And if they all felt good, it would be fun to actually choose to run different ones.
100%. I completely agree, man. 100%.
So and in the beginning of the wipe, you mentioned this earlier. At the beginning of the wipe, it felt like this was going to be the wipe for that, because like we were like, ooh, the SR25 feels really good. Like I want to use semis. Ooh, SMGs like the MP7. SB193, P90, SB193, and the subsonic you can unlock relatively early. And we were like, yo, these SMGs are lit. Semi-autos are lit. The M4 and the HK kind of suck now. So like this is going to be the wipe of everyone using everything. And then it petered off once people started farming. Once people getting level enough to buy M62, and once people started farming Lighthouse, like you were saying, for the BP, it just kind of went downhill. But it was close. For a second there, it was like each gun has a purpose, and that's a good thing.
100%. I felt the exact same way, man. When the wipe started, the first thing I was doing was stocking up on ammo, because I was like, holy crap, P90 actually feels like this might be, because the recoil changes were like, well, okay, these guns feel bad now, but SMGs feel strong, so I'm gonna start stocking up on the ammo. And if you didn't know, you could buy like crazy amounts of P90 ammo. So I was just running S193 in every raid, and I was like, damn, this is fun. But they locked out the buyout for them, so it's a lot harder to run those now, which kind of sucks. But I think that's the better in the long term, is to reduce availability of very good rounds, right? I think that's I like that a lot for sure.
What do you guys think about bolties? I'm a bolty guy. Suppressed DVL is my favorite gun in the game. I feel like they need some love because there's no reason to run a bolty over an SR25, over you know what I mean, like an RSAS or an M1A, you know what I mean? Like, but I feel like, I don't know. They come with an additional risk in the sense that I have to rack the bolt every time. I would like for that to come with an additional reward as well. Give me something. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. I think bolties, like, other than the muzzle, like the muzzle velocity, like the bullets a lot faster, right? Other than that, they're not really where they should be. Maybe make them cheaper, but then the issue arises if they make them cheaper, right? And people can get their hands on M61 easily. You're gonna have people just running around quickscoping them.
It'll be Mosin Man back again, where everybody's just running around with the Mosin. Yeah, and I don't want that. I want it to be. I want there just to be like, this is a bad idea, so like don't hold me to it. But like, if there was a damage modifier for bolties over distance. 100-meter shots got a 1.2. Yeah, 100-meter shots got a 1.2 magnifier. 200-meter or 150 got a 1.3. 200, because then you can't run around labs with it because close range, it's the same thing. And it's encouraging you to use it in the situation it's supposed to be used, which is sniping. I'm not saying that because I think we go down a dark rabbit hole there if we start changing the damage of guns. But like something in that vein of like, something like that encourages you to use the gun the way it's supposed to be used and not just run around factory with a Mosin, but also gives me some sort of bonus for doing that.
So like what you're saying is like if you're like 200 meters out or 300 meters out, it's going to reward you for hitting a pretty hard shot on someone that's moving, and it's going to do damage, or it's going to potentially kill more consistently. That's what you mean, right?
Yeah,
which I agree
100%.
with. Which could be a good buff, but yeah, that's definitely a hard thing to balance.
It's a hard thing to balance, and people would freak out about it. But at the end of the day, it's exactly, if I hit a 250-meter shot, man, I want that. I want to feel good about that. You know what I mean? And I want to feel good about that with a bolty. But
I feel like a good way would be to, because like I know you get more XP for landing longer shots, but I feel like the XP should be, you know, greater.
Way more.
The XP, because I feel like that's a good point. You could do that with XP as well. Holy cow, I had never thought about that. Because because the rogue farm would completely change. If you got an XP bonus for hitting longer shots with bolties specifically, it wouldn't change the damage or pen of the gun, but you'd see a lot more bolties on Lighthouse because they'd be trying to farm that XP. I'd never considered that.
I tested the Lighthouse map. You can hit a 1,400-meter shot.
Yeah, dude, I saw Bams hit a 1,200-meter shot, and dude, that's insane.
I feel like you should be rewarded for hitting those things, right?
Bro,
you're gonna go through bullets trying to hit the shot. It's not like you're gonna line it up every raid.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
And XP would probably be something cool. Like, a lot of people always ask me, like, what's the best way to get XP? And for a lot of casuals, and XP isn't too hard now with dailies and weeklies and stuff, but they could do something like that, and that could make, you know, snipers more common.
For sure.
Kind of cool.
For sure.
Yeah.
Rengawr, what's up, homie?
Welcome, Rengawr.
Hey, you ever sleep through every single alarm you set?
Yes, actually.
Nice, man.
Yeah,
dude,
my fault, guys.
Chat's hype right now, bro. We've been excited. We knew you were gonna show up eventually. No, dude, you're fine. I've literally been there. You were in the tournament last night. I understand, homie.
Yeah, we were up too late. My fault.
It's fine. It's fine. So we're talking about we've been talking about gun balance for quite a while, and we're talking about snipers. The other thing I feel like with snipers is that the sniper skill, I should get more points for hitting longer shots.
Oh, 100%. It takes way too long to level right now, and people just cheese it.
The fact that the best way to do that is just reloading a Mosin and go factory and hit scavs and legs and stuff like that is the most antithetical thing. That's the most anti-sniping thing I could possibly think of, right? Like, you know what I mean? If I'm hitting, I think there should be a distance modifier and then a specific modifier for PMCs as well. If I hit a 250-meter headshot on a PMC, I should get a few sniper points for that because that's hard. You know what I mean? Yep. Like, that's hard. And then that whole quest line is infinitely better and more accessible to people because I feel like nobody gets to level 9. You know what I mean? Like, that's hard. That's a lot of reloading. You know what I mean?
It's a grind, man.
Is there
you have to cheese, right? You have to cheese it.
Yep.
Yeah. Is there an elite perk to sniper skill that provides like any advantage?
I do not know. I mean, I know that they all have you know, elite perks and stuff like that, but I have no idea what that would be. But that's actually what I was going to say too, is like, and then give me a reward for continuing that grind. I use bolties more than I would say the average person does. Like we were just saying, it's like nobody really uses bolties really. Like SR25 or a DMR is always gonna be better. I use like my favorite thing to do in Tarkov. My favorite map is Woods, and my favorite kit is a suppressed DVL and an MP7. That's just my favorite thing to do. I reloaded my way to 9 sniper skill last wipe. At the end of the wipe, I was still level 9. That's the most ridiculous. I use bolties all the time, and I couldn't get 1 point for the entire rest of the wipe. Like it was.
And there's a lot of skills like that too, man. Right? There's a lot of skills. Like mag drills takes forever. Even the surgery skill takes a long time now to level. I don't know if you know, but if you get max surgery skill, I'm pretty sure you don't lose any HP.
Oh yeah.
And they nerf that pretty harsh. But yeah, like back to like the bolty thing that you're talking about, like weapon mastery. Weapon mastery could be really cool for like all guns, right? Like
100%.
And then when you get max weapon mastery, you're able to ADS and double zoom without making any sound. I think
something
at least
like
that's
that.
how it works. And then you can reload while ADS.
Yeah.
Maybe something like that would be cooler for like a buff for bolties or something. I don't know. But yeah, for sure.
Yeah, weapon mastery, all that stuff. It's hard to balance that kind of stuff and I don't want to get into the weeds with this, but if there's ever a time where there isn't a wipe, you don't want people to be able to get max level skills quickly. You know what I mean? But so that's hard. Yeah. But I agree. Things like the skills are very unbalanced in how fast you level them. The weapon mastery, nobody's ever thought. Like maybe 7 people have thought in the past 3 years, like, you know what, I really want to get this gun's mastery. Like, you know, it's just, it's whatever.
Yeah, there's not much reward from it, really.
So Rengawr, I want to move on and talk about some other stuff, but we've been talking about weapon balance, and I know that's something you and me talk about a lot, like when we're gaming and stuff like that. And so the kind of, would you agree with where we arrived, where like the best way to balance the guns is to make more things viable, smooth out how available things are, because we talked a lot about how like it's just the availability of 7.62 BP versus stuff like 5.5A1. Do you agree with that? Disagree with that? Like what's a perfect world for you when it comes to weapon balance in Tarkov?
Well, for me, I've never really understood the way that BSG balances their like we don't want a meta idea, because whenever a gun that hasn't been good before is good, they decide to not only like nerf that gun, but then add some new gun or make some new gun like the only meta choice. Like when we had what was it, 2 wipes ago, we had like the mutant, the HK, the MDR, we had the FAL, like everything felt good. And then they kind of nerfed everything, and then they added the mutant. And you could literally buy a stock mutant from Skier, put a hollow on it, and it was just broken. Like the gun did not move. And that was the meta for a while. And then they seem to do that with everything. Like even this wipe, the P90 was super strong early because you can buy unlimited SP193, and they capped that to 120. Couldn't even do enough for 1 raid with the reset. So like they need to make more things feel good and more calibers feel good, because I'm tired of shooting only BP or M62. So having like MP7 and P90 and all these different calibers feel good is important for gun balance, I think. And
yeah, I definitely agree. Like there will always be a meta. Like there is no universe. There's too many guns. There's too many rounds. There's too many attachments. There will always be one combination of those things that's better than the rest. It's just by what percentage. Because what you just said, Rengawr, we just talked about at length. Hyper brought up that back in kind of like 12.8. Even though the HK was maybe on paper or the FAL the best gun, you would find MP7s, you would find AKMs, you would find Vectors, you would find M4s and HKs and FALs, because even though maybe one was technically better on paper, that delta wasn't so big that it made you only want to use that gun. And so, yeah, there's always going to be a meta. There's no way that there's never, like, that's just impossible. But
yeah, for sure.
But it's just about how big that gap is and how available everything is. So another thing I wanted to ask you guys is, like, what do you guys, so here's another like myth busting thing. We're coming from the perception of the Chad PvPers. What is your guys's opinion on the future of Escape from Tarkov, in the sense of like it becoming more and more like RNG? I'm trying to figure out how to word this. So Tarkov, they've talked about And we're not here to talk about how accurate BSG is with like when they say something's going to come to the game and it is. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But they've talked about unconscious states. They've talked about rocket launchers. They've talked about claymore mines. They've talked about more AI factions. They've talked about open world. They've talked about all these things that seem to push the game to like less of a
skill.
One-on-one skill v skill. You know what I mean? Like
experience, right? Experience is less of a factor in winning fights now.
Exactly.
They're adding the more utility to counteract the skill factor.
How do you guys feel about that? Because the perception is that, once again, from the, is that you guys want to close that. You guys want it skill. And that's where you get people responding to you on Twitter being like, just go play CSGO. Just go play Valorant. That's what that game is made for. You know what I mean? So I want to hear from the horse's mouth, like, how do you guys feel about the direction that they want to take Escape from Tarkov? Are you excited to adapt to it? Do you wish they would take it another way?
I'll play regardless because I just love the game. I like killing people on this game for whatever reason. But
I just feel. Oh, go ahead. Sorry. I was interrupting you.
Like I said, I just like the game anyway. I just feel like some things, like the RGN or RGO grenades, if you remember, you could gamma them at the start of the wipe.
Oh,
they were dirt cheap.
Garbage.
You could buy as many as you want, and it was toxic, right? You pull the pin, just run around naked, kill anyone. And those items are fine in Tarkov completely, and I think Claymores would be too. It's just how available they are and how rare they are, right? Like that to me is what's going to be worrying. Is are people just going to be the Claymores and just sit there all raid, or are they just going to sit with a grenade pinned waiting for you? And like Rengawr did a Twitter clip on this in Blackroom yesterday. and it's super strong, right? Like there's nothing you could do against it, man. Yeah. So I don't know. Either way, I'll still play. Yeah, there's no counterplay for sure.
What are you gonna say, Hyper?
I just hope that the update paces kind of change. Like I'm hoping that when they do changes, they're more like try to slowly tweak it, right? It's like the only thing that kind of like made me really frustrated and made me have a strong opinion about Inertia is that they never touched it yet. Yeah. We don't see tweaks that maybe lead to something that's more balanced. We just have the single instance of it, and then that's it. Like they're not like changing numbers to see how people would react. Maybe they would like it better if it was toned down a little bit. Maybe they'd be toned it up even more, and maybe people will hate it. Even like, will people like it more? Will people hate it? Like we're not getting. I don't think we're getting enough feedback, and I think like, we're gonna have to just like wait until we see like a more balanced side of things, right? Like I want to see like more active changes, even if it's like small numbers, because like you said, and like pretty sure everyone thinks small numbers can really change like the, how the meta changes.
But in general, you're still excited to play Tarkov, even if these things, if the skill gap changes and it becomes, once again, not like completely RNG, you're still going to be able to master the game and be good at it, but it's going to be different. Okay. I want to talk about that, but like Rengawr, what do you think like about the future Tarkov in that sense specifically?
So I kind of agree with Tigz here, where I don't mind the idea of impact grenades or like claymores in Tarkov, but what I really hate is that every like third raid you'll see one. Like if you could only get impact grenades or claymores from like an airdrop and they were super like rare, like maybe the 2% drop, like if I died at one, I'm like, no way that dude found an impact grenade. Come on.
Exactly.
Yep.
It's not like, dude, another impact.
Yeah, you're almost like laugh it off because you're like, whoa. And everybody's died that way. Everybody's died to been like, yo, that dude hit that shot. You see a guy way in the distance and you're like playing with your food a little bit and then he one taps you and you're not even mad. You're like, God dang, that guy hit that shot. So you know what's a great example? So many more things need to be exactly as rare as like 7 and 40. You know what I mean? Like impact grenades, you could buy 5 per reset on the first day of the wipe. You could shove them up your butt. All this kind of stuff. It's so available. But 7 and 40 is goated. That is a good round. It's a reason. If you're a high level player, and you like using AKs, it's like a reason enough to go check an airdrop because there might be 20 rounds of 7 and 40 in there.
It's so good, man.
But nothing else in the game is really that rare. And stuff like that, where it's like if you were like, yo, I found an impact grenade and you can't put it in your gamma container, so you're like, I have to use it. If you die before you use it, maybe somebody loots it off you, and it's like, how far down the channel does that impact grenade make it before somebody throws it and kills a guy? then it totally smooths out those emotions of like, oh, I just got impact naded. You know what I mean? Like, I don't go D2 anymore because like I've been just 2 guys pin pulled just waiting a few times, and I'm like, dude, bump this. This is so stupid.
Sure.
Okay, so and really, we don't have to elaborate more than that. It's just, once again, there's this huge sentiment from a lot of people that it's like, you guys, all you PvP chads, just want it to be, you know, it's just skill, it's only that, and you don't want the vision of Tarkov. Go play another game. You know what I mean? Go play another game. So I hope you guys know that it's good. I'm sure it's going to be good for some people to hear that. Where you guys like, dude, I'm excited to play the game. I'm not mad that they're adding these things into the game. What we want is them to add them thoughtfully, and you know what I mean, with some balance.
And another thing I wanted to quickly add, I feel like this wipe, out of any wipe that I've played, I'm better at the game than I've ever been, and it's because of these new things that they've added. I've completely adapted to the system. It hasn't really changed my playstyle at all. I can still play semi-aggressive, and I think I'm a much better player now than I was before. It's just that there's certain mechanics, like the way left side peaks are in the game, impact grenades, these things make the game a little bit more frustrating, right? But in terms of like playing the game, I think it's made all of us better. Like Hyper, Rengawr, we've all adapted to the game, no problem. It hasn't really pushed us away or anything. It's just there's these few issues there that get on our nerves, and that's what we try and communicate to everybody. But people get miscommunicated from that, I guess. I don't know.
For sure.
And like a lot of things too is like I noticed, like especially on Twitter, like I know Twitter is a bad place to do this, but no one really asks like what our opinion like actually is. Like you know, they just immediately become like either defensive or aggressive instead of just being like, what do you mean by that? You know, like I feel like if people more asked that, then there would be more of a understanding than just, hey, you live, you know, in an echo chamber and that.
For sure. And that applies, I mean, unfortunately, even outside of Twitter these days, it's just like people often just like they want to fight. They want to disagree. They want to rage. They want to do something. And exactly. And Twitter's a hard place to even have that conversation. You know, as all of us as streamers understand that, right? Where it's like, there was like a troll, or I don't remember. I was just trying to explain to my chat, you know what I mean? I was like, imagine telling a story. You're at a party and you're telling a story to 10 people, and 10% into the story, 3 people get up and leave, and 3 new people come in. And then 50% of the way through the story, 3 more people get up and leave and come in. And then when you're almost done with the story, 3 more people get up. So there's only one person there that's heard the entire story. Everybody's got a different amount of information, but they all want to tell you what they think about your story. That's what it's like being a streamer, because people are always going in and out of chat. You might be talking to one person. One person brought up a specific concern, and you're trying to address that. And now all these people are coming in, and they didn't hear what you said, but now they want to ask it. It's very similar on Twitter. Somebody might ask your opinion, you give that, and then you get all these other people coming in and giving their opinion, and they don't have all the information. And it's just impossible. You know what I mean? It's impossible to...
People throw their jabs in there too, and just it just adds to the adds to the toxicity. It's not even banter; it just makes things worse for everybody. Like
it is.
I have to ban a lot of people, man, because of the toxicity.
And then it pushes the divide even further. I did that tweet where I was like, man, I'm so sad that negativity is always more viral than positivity. And some dude DM'd me and he was like, that's what Twitter for. Go cry someone else. Go cry somewhere else. I was like, dude, you're great. I was like, I love you, man. You're fantastic. So to something you pointed out, Hyper, was about like the frequency of changes. I can get behind that thought process a lot. You know what I mean? And I'm very aware I'm not a game dev, right? I don't know how hard it is to tweak those things. I don't know how hard it is to push out to a live build. You know, we know that there's a lot going on in the world that might be adjusting things. But the other side of that, I also think is, I wonder, I don't know this, I don't talk to Nikita, but I wonder, like, because they did that with the weight system. When the weight system came into the game, they almost immediately tuned it down, and then they've changed the weight system like 3 or 4 additional times.
Yeah, they changed the weight system a lot, and I feel like that's what needs to happen with Inertia.
But every time they did it, people freaked out, and I have a suspicion that that's why they don't push out these updates as frequently, because they're like, are we actually getting any relevant data? We'll just like look at it more long term on back end. I wish the community was more open to that. I wish they were more open to like, oh, we adjusted Inertia, and people were like, hey, it's really bad, just let you know. People just lose their freaking minds, dude, and like it goes crazy.
I think what they did with weight system was good, to be honest. I think
too.
They did a great job with adding another money sink to the game without making it so new players were going to get punished hard. And what I mean by that is, when it was first out, it was pretty bad, to be honest. But when they added the stim update, that update was actually amazing, I think, because it made it so a new player has a good chance against someone that's playing the game 8 hours a day. You've got SJ1s, you've got melatoninins, Mulstins. These stimulants make you a Chad for 15 minutes, 10 minutes, and it gives that person a chance without making the weight system completely irrelevant. It adds another layer to the game, which I think is good, and it adds a money sink too, which I think is great too.
For sure.
So I'm glad they added it for sure.
For sure. What was I gonna say? Yeah, no, I agree. I think those changes. Oh, I was gonna say like they are doing a little bit more of that on the back end with the ETS. I know for a fact that there were a few changes, like obviously with the NDA, you don't want to get into it, but there's a few changes we have in 12.12 that 12.12 would have been much worse if they hadn't put that junk on the ETS. You know what I mean? So they are trying to front load a little bit more of that. Adapting, but like I could for sure get behind that. Like I wish there was weekly or bi-weekly tweaks to Inertia. You know what I mean? I've thought that about everything. You know what I mean? It's like give me a few weeks with like radical changes and just see what it shakes up, because there's always like the big thing that's going to happen, but the longer people adapt to it, you're going to find the littler things that it's like, I didn't even realize that change would have affected that. You know what I mean?
Another problem with that as well, right, is like if you're taking feedback from like the community, like on Reddit.
Sorry,
it's fine.
Like if you're taking feedback from like Reddit and just overall like the people that play the game, and then you're also taking feedback from the streamers as well, I think that's much better than just taking feedback from one side of the community, because
for sure.
People like us do have experience, and we don't know everything, and we'll definitely be wrong because of our biases of what we like in the game.
Yeah.
But there is things that will be valuable that they could take from us. I feel like with like, movement and strength and all these little small mechanics.
Yep.
Because if you remember, they made that change and the community went crazy, man. They removed thick items case and thick weapons case from the quest.
Oh my god.
You remember that?
Yeah.
And they went crazy. And that they've done stuff like that, and I think that's it causes a lot of drama that's unneeded, right?
Yeah.
For sure. And that was the worst one for sure.
Dude, that was like, holy cow! It was like people. You would have thought that they reverted EODs down to standards. People were losing their minds.
It was crazy, man, for sure.
Okay, we can fly through a few more things here. So I'd love to know what you guys think. Let's keep this. I want to show people that there's a way to talk about this. Okay, so let's keep it. Cheaters. I don't want to go down this rabbit hole too hard, but at the same time, that's what this whole podcast is about. It's giving you guys an opportunity to elaborate more on the Twitter opinions, the hot takes, the hot takes. And we talked about Rengawr like a lot earlier. We talked about how basically a lot of the whole reason behind this podcast was that so much of this gets blown out of proportion, and so many people assume a lot about the PvP chads. You know what I mean? You guys that are really aggressive, if you're level 68 and above, people just assume things about you, that you just want this, you want this removed from the game, you hate Inertia, you hate all this with that. So same thing, myth busting. I hear all the time that I see all the time people are like, I can't go 2 or 3 raids without getting a cheater. I get cheated on every single day. It's worse than it's ever been. It's terrible. This is unacceptable. I am not some BSG shill. If you've ever watched an episode of the podcast, you know I am very critical of this game.
Yeah.
But I have probably reported 4 people this wipe and was only very, very confident that 2 of them were cheating. Well, I understand that this is also going to be location based. Like I just know some servers are just worse. You know what I mean? And maybe I'm just and that's what I've heard for real. No, but for real, that's what I've heard. And maybe I'm just on them goated East Coast servers. But almost every single time I die, what my thing is, I hit my replay buffer and I watch the clip back. And almost every time that chat's been like, yo, sus. I'll watch it back and I'll be like, yeah, for sure that guy could have been cheating, but I was also sprinting and I had my gun down, and so he probably just shot me in the face. You know what I mean? So I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. I don't want to go down a road on BattleEye or BSG or RMT, but I would love to hear you guys' thoughts.
Can I say this? This is probably the easiest way to put it. It's completely dependent on your playstyle. That's it. It is completely how you play the game.
How so?
No, I'm not talking bad about anyone at all. So, for example, me, Rengawr, Hyper, any of the fast players, we play quick. Like Glorious plays quick too, right?
Yeah.
We're the fast ones. We're going for the high value loot every single raid. We're trying to get in there and then kill everybody. That right there is what changes the amount of cheaters that you see every raid. It's crazy. If you play slow from the start of the raid and you're being methodical, the chance of if there is a cheat in your lobby, for example, the chance of that guy killing you over someone that's running straight towards the high value loot is crazy, and that accounts for pretty much every map in the game. And a lot of people don't realize it, but whenever I see tweets on Twitter, it's always like, well, I've only seen one cheater in 1 month, and it's not me being disrespectful, but it's probably because you're playing slow and you're not going for the high value loot. And there's nothing wrong with that. That right there is what to me makes the difference with how many cheaters you see a day. Like if I go labs right now, and another thing too, servers are a massive part, in my opinion. EU servers are hell, and a lot of the EU labs players, like Axel and Glorious, they'll
Rengawr, you would agree with that? You have experience on EU servers. Do you agree?
Yeah, so I'm from New York, so I get like under 70 ping to like most of EU, so I play a lot of there when NA gets dead. If I play EU, and Spinny would vouch for this too if he was here, we'll get like full lobbies all the time playing EU, like labs, but then every third raid there's a cheater. Like we'll wipe lobby, die cheater, wipe lobby, die cheater, like just straight rage hack through a wall.
Interesting.
I feel like it becomes a problem. Like most of the cheaters in this game, obviously do it for money. They're not like really. Yeah. And the thing is, they're trying to keep their account online as long as possible. And the way they do that is that they will only take you out if they see you as a threat or you're affecting their services, right?
Yeah.
So that's why, like, me, Tigz, and Rengawr and other people, like, since we W key so much and we're going for that high value stuff, they constantly see us as a threat. So they're like, take them out before they ruin the service that I'm providing. So that's why we may encounter them more than other people, because, we're affecting either their service or we're affecting their, their goal in that raid.
See,
if someone's playing slow and methodical, then they'll try to avoid it so they don't have to risk that report and be like, yo, I can grab this Jessekazam for a quick dip and I don't have to kill this guy.
Yep.
See, that is an incredibly valuable answer to that question. Yep. That's exactly why I wanted to bring it up, even though I know this is a dangerous topic. That's a valuable answer to the question because, like, we don't know. You never know with a lot of stuff. I mean, sometimes somebody cheated on you if they're rage hacking through walls. But I'm just saying, like, that's a valuable answer because that is an explanation. It makes sense. You know what I mean? That, like, a lot of people think, a lot of people don't realize that, because when you think of cheater, you think of like cheaters in like BRs, right? Like the only reason you're going to cheat in Fortnite, Warzone, or PUBG is to win, right? Like that's the only reason you're going to cheat, is I want to kill as many people as possible and I want to win this game. And a lot of people don't realize that that's not necessarily the intention of a lot of cheaters, and that could actually mean that they might not want to kill you because they wanted their account to seem legit and they don't want people reporting them. And so that makes sense. I think the problem, what's hard about, I'm not trying to put any of you guys on blast, but what's hard is, so like right now in this late in the wipe, the meta is your guys' gameplay style when it comes to views on like Twitch and YouTube and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like Landmark, all he has to do is just like cut, export a raid. He doesn't have to edit it at all, and he's going to crush because people love seeing that dude slay out. They love it. And that's not a slight. Yeah. You guys have a skill I don't have. You deserve to be rewarded for it. That's not a slight to you guys at all. But what happens then is if a lot of the attention follows that type of play style, even though the ratio of people that actually play that way is really small, right? Like I bet you guys would agree. It's like, it's not like 40% of the community W keys. Like it feels like everyone's still a Timmy sometimes, you know what I mean? So you've got a high amount of people that watch the Chads. You've got a low amount of people that play that way. And when the feeling from my favorite streamer is that dude was a cheater, that dude was a cheater, that dude was a cheater, I'm getting cheated all the time. Like, we all know, like you guys all probably have way more hours in Tarkov than I do, like each of you individually. You guys
need 10,000 hours, I think.
That's absolutely insane.
Almost 10K over here.
That you guys know more than anybody how many absolutely ridiculously random ways you can die. Like you can die to AI, you can die to, you were fighting and it was a third party. Some dude could have hit the shot of his life. Something could have ricocheted, a grenade fragment, a god nade. There's a million ways for you to die. You guys know that, but I think what's hard is when people enter the game thinking, I hope I don't get cheated on, and then they're fighting somebody and somebody shoots them from nowhere and they go, no, I was fighting that guy was behind a hill, that guy killed me. I got, you know what I mean? Yeah. And I think that's where I have trouble. People come into like, this is my first wipe and I get cheated on every day. I'm like, I don't think so. You know what I mean? Maybe I can't say no, but I just don't think so. And so I think that's a valuable answer. And the last thing we want to do is bring any sort of attention to cheating or RMT or how it works or what they want to do. We don't want to bring attention to that. Yep. But I do think that's a good distinction to make. You know what I mean? Yeah. That you guys might encounter that more because you are seen as a threat to them more. You know what I mean?
Yeah, playstyle. 100%. Yeah. If I could touch on one thing as well. It's hard to, like, say you're a new viewer at Tarkov and someone just pops into your stream and the first impression they get from your stream is you saying, oh, he's cheating.
Yeah.
You're going to be like, damn, this guy's a dick, man. He's just making excuses. He's just making excuses for his death. He's not actually like being humble, etc., etc. For us, like whenever we die, the last thing we could care about is our ego or the gear that we've lost.
Yeah.
If something's suspicious and we're like, damn, that was kind of weird. Like we're going to call it out. You know what I mean? And without a doubt, even with the hours that we have, we're definitely wrong a lot of the time. But it does happen to us a lot, and that is because of how fast we play the game. And you could say, well, just play slower then, but
that's not how we built our audience.
No, I get that. And that doesn't, exactly. You don't want to, the response to a problem, to you know, and then like cheaters isn't just, whoa, just play differently. You know what I mean? Like this is how you want to engage with the game, and you should be able to engage with the game the way you want to engage. Just like, you know what I mean? In the same way, if people cheated in Tarkov to stomp on Timmys, like, you know what I mean? Maybe like there was no such thing as RNT. Yeah. The Timmys wouldn't want to hear, we'll just get better. You know what I mean? Like, so that's a wrong argument. You can't just say, well, change the way you play, because you wouldn't want somebody telling that to you either. It's interesting. It's interesting. I just think it's, as somebody who doesn't play that way, as somebody who doesn't get cheated on very often, I would just say, I hope you get as much value about talking to me about it as I'm getting from you. I'm getting a lot of value in learning, but at the same time, just know that, like you guys have a lot of eyeballs. There's a lot of reasons. There's a lot of reasons to say somebody cheated on you if you're new. That's not real. And there's always there's always not always, but there's a lot of times the Hail Mary, like, maybe because that's what's hard about it sometimes, is like, I might watch somebody who is laying in a spot and then somebody just swings around the corner and kills them. And he goes, there's no way he'd know I was there. That guy's cheating. You guys know all the rat spots because you've got 10,000 hours in the game. So sometimes, even if you don't know someone's there, you enter a room and you look in a weird spot. Not because you have wall hacks on, but because you're like, I died to some rat laying there with a double barrel once. And if you walk into a room not knowing somebody's there, look there and shoot them, it's not even necessarily that they're going to think you're cheating. It's just hard to trust you when somebody walks in on you and shoots you, and you go, why would he know I was there? And then they see you walk in on rooms and like pub stop people. It's just like, what do you mean? It's now, like I said, I can basically like give you guys the fact that, I can trust you guys more than me. And I actually got confronted with that. I was playing, I don't know if you know Desmond Pilak, but he plays a lot. And I was in a woods raid with him, and he was like, yo, this guy's cheating. He was like, we should run away. And I unpush to talk, and I was like, chat, this is ridiculous. I was like, eye roll. I was like, how would he know that? Dude was totally cheating. Yeah. Like 5 minutes later, he was totally cheating. And I was like, God dang. And I was like, that's where that experience,
it's the same for me in Hyper.
You have thousands and thousands and thousands of hours on me. Okay, maybe you do know, but you guys don't have a responsibility. It's a video game. Play it however you want. Say whatever you want to say. But A lot of people tell me, because I'm the new player guide guy, you know what I mean? A lot of people tell me that they get cheated on all the time, and I'm just like, I don't know, man. Are you SJ6ing reserve loot and labs loot? Because if not, I don't know if you're getting cheated on, you know?
For sure, 100%.
So,
I was gonna say something, but I forgot. Okay, yeah, actually, there it is. So I don't know. This is kind of sort to say, but I want Hyper's and Rengawr's opinion on this. You guys have played the game for years, right?
Yeah.
Would you say cheating's worse now than it's ever been, or no? Because I think it is personally. I think it's the worst I've ever seen.
I would say it's more established, and there's more like of a market. Like the market is more established, and whoever like like it's definitely something that's growing in terms of like
popularity. Yeah.
Well, this is the advancement of it, right? Like it's crazy, like when like you see like landmarks showing off like what they can do, like the the rounds like bouncing off walls and stuff like that. Like it's getting so intricate and it's getting so privated to the point where it's like it's almost
hard for the devs to do anything.
Yeah, it's hard with the devs because like they have their marketplace. BSG is doing their best against it.
Yeah,
and there's people buying these services still, which blows my mind because like this game wipes. It's like what the hell's the point?
Wild.
And like I get these people have money, but at the same time, it's just like, why, man?
I feel like there are definitely more cheaters now than before the game had anti-cheat in general. Like, I see them all the time, and I don't know if it's because the number of cheaters have increased or because the player population feels to be like dwindling. That like the cheaters are still out there, they just haven't gone away. So like there's less legit players and the same amount of cheaters, so I feel like I get more cheaters. And something I wanted to talk about earlier was that a lot of new players do say they get cheated a lot, but they don't know like right hand versus left hand, and they'll die on like a right hand.
Yeah.
Like, just the way it works desync wise.
That's big for sure. That's huge.
Yeah.
And
that's a great point.
I don't want to like sound egocentric, but like I'm gonna speak for maybe all of us here. When like all of us have a lot of hours. It's like 30,000 hours in this call at least, and there's so much that goes through like all of our brains and we play a raid. It's not just like, oh, run at things and monkey. It's like, oh, I want to get a right hand here. I want to nade this guy off this angle. I want to nade push this guy. I'm going to fake a heal. I'm going to do this. And like, there's a spawn on my left, spawn on my right. Like I'm thinking about all these things. And when something doesn't add up to the experience of 4,000 hours on this map or PvP, it doesn't make sense. Like it's pretty easy to call out when I get headshot 17 times by a stock HK that probably wasn't a legit player.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, that's true, and that's hard. That's always going to be a struggle for you guys. That's always going to be a hard thing because a lot of what this podcast is, like I've been surprised at how many times both you guys, especially in the earlier conversations, both said, "I wish the game was like this because it'd be easier for newer players." A lot of people just don't want to believe that you guys have newer players in mind. Because they just want to believe you got 10,000 hours. All you want is like you're only thinking through the lens of 10,000 hours. All you want to do is pub stomp people. You want to make the game harder for new players because then it's easier for you to get kills. And that is just not true. And a huge part of why I wanted to do this podcast is to give you guys the opportunity to talk about stuff. Yeah. And so I hope that this podcast shows a lot of people.
So
I'm glad you've done this, man. But I actually really love talking about Tarkov. It's good.
Yeah. But you're always going to struggle with it because, and even I do, like, you know what I mean? I make guides. I'm the new player. I make guides and all this stuff. And people still come in to me even. And I've got less than half the hours than you. I'm a 10th as good as any of you. And they're still like, yeah, but you're just a Chad, man. You don't know what it's like to be new. And they just write you off. And to a certain extent, there's just like no way around that. Yeah.
The recent changes have definitely been hurting like the new players in terms of like people like just trying to like come into the game. But like the thing that we've been trying to argue for is trying to make the game easier because we know that when we play the game how long we have, like we can easily get past those changes within a few weeks of like playing, right? So like the greatest change was like Inertia, right? Like we want it toned down so that the new people coming in aren't like, I have massive input delay, this game doesn't feel as good, I don't want to play it as much as I used to. Compared to us, where like we'll get max strength in a week, it won't feel like nothing to us.
Yes, dude. That's what, once again, another brain dead argument that people say to you guys is like, just adapt to Inertia. It's like, you guys have probably $1 billion rubles between the three of you. What do you mean adapt? How could you possibly adapt more than still having an 80% survival rate and a 12 KD? You guys have adapted. It's like, so brain dead argument, absolute brain dead argument.
Yeah. They've adapted. Really have.
Yeah.
I never understood the adapt argument either, because like, why didn't you adapt for the last 5 years of the game? Why do we have to adapt now?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You could have run fast around the map if you wanted to.
Exactly.
It's just you didn't like that playstyle, so you decided not to.
It comes from a place of, like we said at the very beginning, it comes from a place of people thinking you guys just want these changes removed because you don't like it. You know what I mean? And Rengawr, I guess I should ask you this because both of them agreed. Do you think Inertia should stay in the game and be tweaked, or do you want it gone?
Okay, so that's like a hard opinion to pick.
Yeah.
Because personally, I miss the old movement. I liked the way it felt.
Yeah.
It felt super clean and fluid. However, for the game in general, I think the game would play better with Inertia, but the current version of Inertia is lazy and terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah,
like I said, it was a half-assed addition, and
it makes a lot of issues too.
It made a lot more issues than it did solve.
Yeah.
Yes. So here's where I'm gonna come in. I just don't know if we can use words like lazy and half-assed. You know what I mean? Like that's where I just don't know. Because I know that they spent months working on it. I know that it spent several weeks on ETS with a whole lot of feedback to it. You know, I know that day 1 of the wipe, I thought it felt great. But day 90 of the wipe, when I'm running around with skills that are different, with more on, that's where it's so that's an additional thing where I think the rub is when we say, once again, even if you guys are right and can justify the way you're talking about it, if it's in a tweet saying that like Inertia is lazy, or did they even think, did they even, I'm not saying any of you guys have tweeted this, but the perception is, did they even play with Inertia? Like how did they let this slip by? That's where people, they take offense, they get defensive, they get really mad, because it's like, I mean, I don't know how to incorporate Inertia, but I agree. Like when we get down to the nitty gritty, every single thing that every single one of you guys has said, I completely agree with. You know what I mean? It's like, it is harder for newer players. It's too easy to get around for higher tier players. It doesn't accomplish anything. It definitely created more problems because it took an already broken AI system and triple broke it because they don't freaking have it. You know what I mean? So when we get down to the nitty gritty, I agree with what you guys are saying. I think it's just people, those opinions of like, just adapt or die, see the learn, just they come from a place where people are like, they think that you guys just want the good old days all the time and nothing to ever change. And the reality is that's not always the case. Of course it's a spectrum, right? Even you three don't represent everybody. I'm sure Smitty would have a slightly different opinion. Trey would have a slightly different opinion. You know what I mean? Vibin would have it doesn't mean you guys, but I bet it's all varied from like Rengawr saying like, I miss the old system, but I bet for Tarkov, this is probably a good thing, all the way up to people saying like, yeah, I think it's great. It just needs to be tuned. At the end of the day, I would bet most of you guys think it's good for the game. It just is not in a good place.
Yeah. Exactly. Another example of this is today, I'm not even kidding. I was stuck inside a room for 30 minutes in this one raid. There's a 3-man outside. I was inside Crack House in the library.
Okay.
And the only reason I didn't take a chance to kill them was because I knew I would lose off the peeking mechanic, right?
Yeah.
So I was inside the library. They used all their nades. I had no nades. What happened was, and this is partially due to Inertia, they knew if they try and push me, they die because of the left side peak. But if I push them, I'm going to just die because there's 3 of them, right?
Yeah.
So what happened there was, if I was to throw a nade, they're going to push me, I'm going to die because of the animation. And if they throw a nade, that opens up a window for me to shoot them. So why Inertia's bad in terms of just PvP is those situations there, it makes it very like linear. It's like if you put 2 good players in the, in I don't know, factory for whatever, all they're going to try and do is get that right side. And in previous wipes, yeah, and then it leads to like desync peeking with like the tap in E. And if you didn't know, that's very buggy. You can like shoot people around walls and they won't see you.
You're invisible. You're tapping, right?
Yeah. Yep. In previous wipes, obviously right sides have always been better, but with Inertia, it stopped you from being able to take that left side, even though it's a disadvantage now. So it creates situations like that for me today where we're both just stuck and none of us are going to peek, which leads to like, I guess it was funny, but bad content. I don't know.
Yeah, the only way like I've seen like left-handing working is just like you start spraying. Yeah,
I was eating cookies and milk while I was waiting to fight these guys, and
you It just becomes like a pre-fire of the left hand, and you just have to pray that they walk into it and they swing into it.
Yes, that exactly. It's pre-fire. It's the jiggle peek. I know he's here, so I can just pre-fire head height and hope I get the kill.
Yeah, hope. Yeah.
Do you think that a better tuned version of Inertia plus shoulder swapping makes for good PvP again? Do you think that'd be good?
Amazing. It should have been before Inertia was added.
I think shoulder swapping would fix the whole, like, I feel like there'd be so many more, like,
yeah.
I feel like PvP would change if you could shoulder swap. There'd be so many crazy angles. There'd be so many crazy peaks. There'd be so many crazy things you could do. It'd probably lead to a whole, like, new era of PvP just by simply shoulder swapping.
And you know what's crazy is that, like, I think that shoulder swapping to the majority of the community, I think that shoulder swapping is probably like the last thing on their list of things they care about. 100%. And I think the more I talk to you guys, the more guys I'm watching you guys in your stream, the more I'm like trying to better myself as a player and play more aggressively. Honestly, the more I agree with you, the more I think it would be actually one of the craziest things for the game. And like you said, could almost usher in a new era of PvP. Something that simple, just being able to swap shoulders and take left sides. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It made it very it just made it very like straightforward. It's just always the same way to fight, and I think that's just bad for everybody. Like, and it goes into that spiral. Like I said to you earlier, Jesse, this is wipe. You've probably heard right side peek so much, right?
Yeah.
Now in previous wipes, it was there, but like no one spoke about it.
Nobody talked about it, dude. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like now the meta of like Twitch and like streamers giving influence and making guides and stuff like that. That's creeping up and catching up with everybody. And if nothing's changed 6 months from now, all you're going to see is right side peaks every single raid. And it's going to make the game very boring for a lot of people, even the people that like to play slow and stuff like that.
Yep.
Because they're like, damn, he was on the right side, I was on the left. I'm not going to win that.
Yep.
And that to me is a big issue with the shoulder of aiming down guns. And that's why I think it should have been in the game before Inertia. And yeah, so I hope you guys understand what I'm trying to say.
For sure.
Yeah, because
I think it helps everybody, not just the Giga Chads, you know.
It becomes like really like repetitive too, especially like if you're playing like because what is it? I had a customs raid like yesterday, or not yesterday, but the day before, where I was at 4 and we're just doing circles around each other because we're just trying to get the right hand.
Yeah.
And we're just constantly running in a circle because we know if we take that right hand, we see them first, we have the opportunity to fire first. And we're most likely going to win the fight because we both have mutants, you know? So, like, it's just whoever shoots first and whoever sees the first person. And it's just a game of ring around the rosy until one of us decides, hey, I'll take the left hand, I'll risk dying.
Yeah.
You know, I have the disadvantage, blah, blah.
Interesting. You agree, Rengawr?
Yeah, it's just get right-hand peek. It's just,
that's just the meta.
It's just, that's all there is to it. And I really wish that there was shoulder swapping. I was honestly against it for a while, as a mechanic, 'cause I thought it would be weird.
Yeah.
But like at the first month of wipe, I was like, no, you guys are crazy. We should not add that. Because I was still in the old mindset of like, oh, just ego left if you really want to. Like it's fun, but like it's inertia. You can't do it. You can't get away with it. And one of the biggest changes that really makes me feel like I'm stuck a lot when I play is the grenade change. Because as a solo player, I cannot pull one out ever to like help me get off an angle and like left peek something. Because that was my solution: is you nade off a wall and you swing with the nade, and then that covers your left hand and you win the swing usually.
Yeah.
But you can't do that anymore. You pull out an 80, you push by 3 man, you die.
Yeah. Yeah. I get that. I definitely love the grenade change. Like, and I get it. Once again, different play styles is definitely gonna do it. But like, I was the guy that just like, you know what I mean? You were talking about making cookies and eating cookies, waiting for somebody to hit the right side peak. I used to be in dorms, just chilling in a room with the door closed. I could freaking, go make an energy drink. It just nade.
Yeah,
and I'm like, I'm just going to wait until you run out. Like, I'm not going to peak this. Like, and it was
needed for sure.
It was so
added the grenade delay.
It gets bad,
especially against groups too. Right?
Yeah, groups are terrible.
Yeah.
I was going to say that. I said groups, nade spamming, like, fighting groups, I would just like nade after nade after nade. Like it became so bad where it would actually break the audio of the game.
Yeah.
Like it was terrible.
Do you ever like watch an old clip and you're like, holy cow, we used to be able to throw nades like that?
It's the movement. It's crazy, dude.
Yeah.
I have an old interchange clip of a 5-man literally just spamming vogs at me, and it was literally breaking my game audio. Like I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
No footstep sounds, no gunshots, nothing.
I hate I hate that they made when I press G, it pulls out a random grenade. Why?
Yeah,
that's so stupid. Because you added a new smoke, you added a few new flashbangs. I would every raid 10 out of 10 just because I'm a freaking weirdo. 10 out of 10 raids, I would bring 2 frags and a smoke, and you used to be able to do that with flashes and just like put you would put the grenade third, and you know what I mean. You would know you would hit frag, and then flash, or frag, and then smoke, and then you could just bind the smoke to 7. You know what I mean? But now I feel like I bring an impact nade and I bind to 7, or I bring a smoke and I bind to 7. I press G in a fight, and the first thing I pull out is the smoke, and I'm like, never, never again. I don't want to do that. I don't know why they freaking did that, but it pisses me off, dude. 1 step forward, 2 steps back every time.
I feel like nades as a solo player are just very. The change was 100% needed to stop nade spam, but it's like if you're solo against like a 2-man and you're trying to get some distance and create a gap to be able to reposition better, if you pin that nade, the nade audio is so loud, you're gonna hit them pin it. All they're gonna do is push you and you're dead. There's nothing you can do, and that's pretty harsh for solo players, I think, too, with nades. I never bring nades anymore. I run in right side and kill everyone. That's pretty much the meta for me and most of the streamers. Nades are good though, but it's as a solo, if you're being pushed, you're kind of screwed, for sure.
Interesting. I never really considered it that way. Are you how do you guys so that's a good thing that like how do you guys consider the game? I feel like as the game progresses, it'll get more squad friendly and harder for solos.
Yeah.
Do you think that like do you just see that as like a necessary evil and you guys are just going to try and remain?
Yeah.
Do you think that there will be enough balance of like if you're a skilled solo player, you can still make it happen? Like what do you guys, because I definitely see the game going that direction, and
it's getting harder,
I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts as all primarily solo players.
I feel like every game tries to, especially survival games, they always get into this aspect of where, the group always has the advantage.
Yeah. But
that there's always, that option to solo play, and that's what's great because, if you want the most emotion and the most, satisfaction, playing solo is the best way. Like wiping out a 3-man by yourself and having that disadvantage is probably one of the best feelings about this game.
For sure.
It's an adrenaline rush. When you're in a group and stuff, it feels good. But you don't get, that high as you do is, being in that disadvantage and winning.
Rengawr, what do you think?
That's why I play solo personally. I like playing duo. I have fun if I enjoy like being around the person. Like, I enjoy duo, but anything more than that, it's just I don't feel any emotion. And even in duo, sometimes my duo wipes a 5-man and I don't think, oh yes, all of us loot. I go, damn, I didn't get any kills. Yeah. That's the first thing I think is I didn't get any kills.
Yeah.
I don't know. I enjoy that feeling of like I fought a 5-man and I almost killed them, or I did kill them, or oh my god, they whatever. But it's just you get the most out of the wins and the losses that way playing solo.
Yeah, and you learn so much too.
So much.
Then you look back at it and you're like, yo, I could have done this. I could have killed the 5th one if I did that, or I could have did this. When you're in the 5-man, you're kind of like, my teammate didn't back me up. You tend to blame your team than you do, put the blaming on yourself. That's why like solo play for me is so great, because the only person to blame is you, or maybe a factor of the game.
Yeah. No, yeah, for sure.
But you're able to like rewatch it and like it doesn't feel as bad.
I think it's different. Like I would you guys agree that a really, really good solo player is harder to kill than a 3-man of just like derps who might be level 30, like they played the game a decent amount, but they're not taking it seriously. Would you guys do that? So that's where it's like, I want it to be, I like that the game is getting more like squad focused. My favorite way to engage is duos. I really don't like trios. Like once again, same with Rengawr, unless it's like the homies and we're just like goofing off. Like the other day we did it was me and 4 other day. We 5-mans of people who never go labs, and we were like, let's go labs all day. Only cards, only labs, let's do it. And it was like a blast. We were dying left and right, of course, but it was a blast. But if I'm serious, if I'm trying to win, duos is my favorite. And it all comes down to like, it's a different emotion. It's a different high. Going back to what you're saying, HyperRat, like, yeah, dude, when you can solo a 5-man, you know what I mean? Like you're like, I'm better. I'm not just better than you, I'm better than all of you. And that just like feels so good. But like, I don't know if you guys have ever watched any videos of Operator Drewski and his 4-man playing interchange. That junk is insane. They are a well-oiled machine. They get up top, they split, they're super far away from each other. They have callouts for everything, dude. Every soda can on the ground, every chair, they have callouts. They keep comms clean, and they own it. They own interchange. But what's crazy is if you ever ran into one of them, it would be a 1v1 because they're all so split. They're all so split from each other, but they can own it. And I feel like that's such a cool thing to engage with, to like trust your teammates, to be able to keep the comms clean and execute on a plan. The reason why I like duos so much is because when we're really in a rhythm, like the guys I play with a lot, I can be like, we can get in one of those situations like Tigz where you're saying, where it's like, I don't want to swing this. They're not swinging it. What do we do? It's like, hold it, throw a grenade, keep them distracted. I'm going to split. I'm going here. I came up, killed the guy. They all turned around. Then I peek, get the last two. That feels good to me. I like executing those fast-paced plans. As the game gets progressively more squad-based, I hope they keep that. I hope that the squad things that they add in the game require skill and sacrifice. And I want it to be, in order to be good as a squad, you have to be a well-oiled squad. You know what I mean? Because that's, like we said, like that's how Tarkov is right now. Like you guys, I'm sure, dumpster on squads all the time because you can just get them all in the, is that you? Is that you? Is that you in the Discord? And you can just like, you can play with them. You know what I mean? And so if they add these things that make it easier to squad, I hope that they keep that where it's like, yeah, it's easier if you put the time in, if you have a role, if you can keep comms clean. I don't want it to ever to just be like the meta of just like find 3 randos because that's going to be easier. Like I like that solo people can push me around when I'm duos. You know what I mean? Because it's like, dude, you're good. You're good. Like you earned that kill. Like, you know what I mean? So
for sure. It's definitely got harder though as a solo. Like with all the changes to like limb damage and like the availability of like ammos, like you can still be good solo, but it is much harder than it was previous wipes, right? Like when I first started playing this game, I rarely died playing labs, and I would fight squads all the time, and I felt like I was good. I know I'm still good at the game now, but it's like no, I do get destroyed now, like in squads, and but that's what makes it more fun though.
Yeah,
is when you do get destroyed and you do fight a good squad and you do kill them, you're like, damn, I actually outplayed them. That was pretty fun.
Yeah.
So it's more rewarding. You know what I mean? So it's good.
I'm more scared of a duo than I am of a 3, 4, or even 5-man because I know that duo has more clear comms and they probably know what more they're doing and they're probably more focused on, you know, pinching me than a 5-man because a 5-man is constantly like, you know, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Yep. Are you there? Is that you? They're double checking everything.
Yep.
Or they're either going to TK. And there's a lot of instances where like I am fighting a 3 or 4-man and it is TK in front of me. I'm like, what are they doing? And
oh yeah. 100%.
And it just becomes like a laughing moment there. But a duo, they're more like situated, you know. They know what their homie looks like. They don't have to think as much. They can give clear comms, and that I feel like I die more to duos than I do 3 to 4-mans.
Yeah, that's true, man. The higher, the more the amount of people, it feels like the more split you need to be successful. Because when everybody's around, if there's 6 people on your, you know, if you're looking at 4 people on your screen, you know one of them's the enemy. It's like, oh no, what do I do? Yeah, I agree. Cool. Last thing. This has been. If any of you guys need to bounce, we've been going for a little over 2 hours now. If you guys are live or streaming, I definitely don't want you guys to feel like we have to chill. The last question I had, and we can just finish up, is another general consensus around people is that the Chads think that the end game is boring, that there's like nothing to do. So I've only been level 60 one time ever in one wipe. I got Kappa every wipe up until the last wipe when they made it 72, and I was like, dude, bump that. And then they lowered it, but it was too late. So I'm level 58 right now. So I know that this wipe I'm going to get higher than I've ever gotten. Like I know I'm going to get Kappa this wipe. It's crazy to me with all these endgame quests, how much stuff there is to do. Like it used to be when you hit level 40, there was like nothing. It was just farm XP. That was it. There's nothing to do. I'm level 58. I'm trying to get raiders on reserve. I'm trying to get my weekly done. I got a good daily. I'm trying to craft and find LEDXs for Crisis. I got to kill Sturman. I feel like I have too much to do as a level 58. I know that you guys blow through that stuff quicker than most for sure. But like, how do you guys feel about comparative to where it's been in the past? Like how much content there is past max traders?
Okay, so I'll go first if you want. For me, I think so. For us, all of us, the streamers, whatever, if we play fast or whatever, most of the guys that play fast, if they are like trying to grow their brand and streaming, they're pretty much the meta is like go through the traders, get the new guns, make a video on it, grow your stream, etc., etc. That is the meta, right? That's what we do, and unfortunately, that burns us out of the content
for sure
pretty quick, and there's no one else to blame but us. But to me, from playing the game for the past few years, I think what kept Tarkov exciting for us and everyone else that watched Tarkov was the PvP, right? And I know BSG doesn't want Tarkov to just be a PvP game, but I think that's where they kind of went a little bit wrong in terms of retaining, one, just viewership for people that watch the streams and excitement, and two, for people that want to keep playing. Like you just said, like once you get max traders and maybe you get the tracksuit or, you get Kappa, after that, most people are going to just move on and get bored, right? And that's where PvP comes into it. I've always thought PvP is the end game for Tarkov, and the maps just amplify that. For example, Labs. Labs is one of the best maps in the game, but in my opinion, in its current state, it's the worst map in the game. Like I always try to explain to chat, like it's got some of the best loot in the game, and it's not like crazy hard to get into, but no one really plays it. You either get a dead lobby with 1 or 2 players, or it's a cheater carrying somebody. And to me, that's where like the end game is like kind of swayed off to me in the wrong direction. But that's just my bias, It's like I always look at Landmark as an example of this. Landmark in previous wipes was like he was the PvP Chad, right? You would go watch him and it'd be super entertaining to watch.
Yeah.
I don't do it anymore. And it's not because I don't like Landmark, it's because the PvP is not there. You're not having many people running at you. Do you know what I mean? And I mean that deters down to playstyle and stuff, but that to me is like what I miss really with Tarkov. It's just like endgame was PvP and it's not so much there anymore. It's there, but it's it's not entertaining, I guess. Like, I mean, I play the game a lot. Why would I want to watch a stream? You know what I mean? Of Tarkov. But back then I did. But yeah, that's just my point really.
Yeah, the one great thing about PvP as well was just the variety to it, right? Like you would see like Val's MP7s and like a bunch of these like crazy different guns, but now like the end game PvP just feels like the same, like 3 different guns. It's like am I fighting M62? Am I fighting BP? Am I fighting 45 AP? Like it feels like I died to the same 3 bullets the entire day.
Yeah.
Like if I was to make a spreadsheet over a week of playing this game, I'd probably say 45 AP, M62 BP, or M62 and BP are like the most common bullets I've died to the entire week, because it's just the same thing. Like I'm missing the variety of like crazy M4 builds, or like maybe like people trying out the shorty HK, or someone using a short barrel foul. Like you just don't see that stuff anymore. It's just like the same RSS handguard MK, or the SR25, or the 45 Vector, or even the UMP. Like it's just the same guns.
What do you think, Rengawr?
I don't feel like there is endgame PvP anymore. Like I don't really ever see people geared with anything. Like if I do, maybe it's on labs. Like maybe it's one other guy running around with a mutant. But every person that I see, like they have UMP or shotgun. There was the day that I did the Black Room clip, right, through the Impact Grenade Black Room, I was actually mauling because for 4 hours straight, I did not see any person that did not have a UMP, was naked, or had a shotgun. Like they were like, a lot of them were 45, 50 plus. And it's like, why are you naked with a shotgun with a DB? Why do you only have an MMAC with a UMP when you're level 60? I don't get it. How like I get that, like it's just so many people have it, and I feel like no one actually wants to fight in the game, and there's like no incentive to do so, which like, or no one enjoys it. I'm not sure what it is, but it feels like
the incentive is gone.
I run around and I feel like I'm playing hide and seek to get PvP.
Why do you think that is? Because that's very interesting. And honestly, even as somebody who PvP's on my level, now that you think about it, you're right. Like I used to pull slicks and exfils off people more often last wipe and the wipes prior, even though I suck. You know what I mean? Like compared, so like I'd be interested. Like, why do you guys think it's less? Do you think it's a player retention problem? Do you think it's because of the imbalance of the guns?
I think I think a lot of it has to do with I don't know if you guys remember this change, but there was a selling change to, like rigs and stuff. Like selling stuff back to traders was significantly decreased, like by a huge amount. And I feel like that just kind of like made PvP to where like, I just spent like $1 million making this kit and probably spent $1 million on ammo. And I used $1 million of ammo on this one guy, and I got 100K off selling his juicy gun with his slick. You know, it's kind of like it was kind of like I just got all this. I should probably just keep it instead of selling it because there's no like a lower level probably won't need that slick, so they could sell it and make good ruble. But then they go to sell it and they're like, the best armor in the game is worth 100K. What? They look at it and they're like, I'll just stash it away and use it later as I level up.
Yeah.
Instead of making a conscious decision of I can sell this for a lot of money, and upgrade my hideouts, or I can run it and maybe live a bunch of raids. But now it's kind of like I have to save it. I'm not going to sell it.
Could I add something to this as well?
Mm-hmm.
So, another thing, right? Like, I feel like the meta of Tarkov PvP content has shifted massively. As where it used to be like labs, factory, reserve, it's more shifted onto the side of just going customs now because customs has the most players and it has the most action, right?
Yeah.
I feel like if you're going to go for PvP, customs has pretty much all the action. But to me, and the way it used to be before was like, for the people that play the game a lot, like me, Rengawr and stuff, labs was the playground where you go to. You'll be fighting the highest skill players. The lobbies will always be full. And, you're probably going to die a lot, but the content was really good for us.
Yeah.
Now I feel like if you're not really going to customs, you're not really getting that like PvP. You're basically just forced to kill new players. And for me, I don't enjoy doing that. I want a challenge in my raids, right? You know what I mean? And it's like
it's only funny to kill a level 1 so many times before you're like, come on. Like
exactly. And that's my point with like labs. Like I feel like labs is just it's not where it should be as the end game map. For people like me and Rengawr, that's usually where we would be for PvP, but it's not been like that for a little bit now. And I don't know. That makes the game a little bit boring for I think me.
Yeah.
So
sure. I mean, there's definitely like to your point, Hyper. Like there is definitely an imbalance when somebody brought this up too. Insurance is expensive, insanely expensive. So it's like okay, so I have to get because we talked earlier about how the flea market changes were good, right? We don't want everybody to have access to everything all the time. And that means that, of course, you're going to find less of the best stuff in the game. So it could be said that, well, that's just a result of that. But I think it's more than that. I think it's a combination of if everybody's running BP, then I don't necessarily care to run a slick, right? Because he's probably going to kill me anyway. Or M61. It's a combination of insurance is expensive. So in order for you to bring your kit, you have to spend 1 million rubles on your kit. You got to spend 350,000 rubles insuring your kit. And if you win against even the best of the best, I can only sell your kit for like less than to insure my kit, which is crazy. You know what I mean? So then like if you as a Chad want to make a conscious decision to take out a ball-in kit, you basically are signing up. I need to win 3 raids in a row to start profiting. If we're not talking loot, right? If we're just talking PvP loot, because it's like the first 2 raids are just making sure that I got insurance covered and the price of my ammo every raid. And then now I'm making money. So it's kind of like a combination of all those things. Veritas says all the time, like, and it's true, like there's a lot they could do with like dog tags, higher level dog tags being really valuable or having really good barters for them.
I had a really good idea. So what is it? I had it's kind of like from COD, like a whole kill confirm thing. So if you kill somebody, for example, and you extract with your dog tag, their dog tag is worth like it turns like golden, for example, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically a kill confirm tag, and that sells for a lot of ruble. Because instead of just like killing your friends, it wouldn't do that because it would count as a team kill. So getting a kill confirmed would actually give an incentive to PvP, making it worth more for other people or for people in the late game.
And it's not as farmable if you kill a guy that killed 5 guys. You get all those tags out, but it's not like you can sell that for like millions of rubles because only one tag is the kill confirmed.
Only one tag worth. Yeah, one tag is kill confirmed. So it could be like you are a PMC, right? So you're technically, it would go along with the lore of like, your higher ups looking at like, oh, you killed one other PMC, here's this extra little bit of cash for you. So it would fit with the lore.
I like that idea a lot. I like that idea a lot. And like we said, there's so much they could do. It doesn't even just have to be monetary valuable. It could be barters for cases or for armors or for guns or for certain attachments or whatever. Like you wouldn't want it to be farmable where like you can just get slicks all the time, but like there's a lot they could do. There's a lot they could do with the tags that makes PvP worth going for. You know what I mean? Like there's some sort of incentive. Same thing with events. You know what I mean? Like they did the Raider event on Factory, and it's like for the first day or two, it was like a lot of good PvP. Then by day two or three, it's all double barrels. You know what I mean? Because everybody's had their fun. But like any sort of catalyst, I think I was in your stream, Tigz, the other day, and we were like, yo, Woods needs some love. If they did any sort of event on Woods, it would be dope.
Be amazing.
Woods is my favorite map in the game when I get a full lobby of people that want to play. It's so much fun. The rotates are great. The flanks are great. The angles are great. The sight lines are great. But if it's dead 3 raids in a row, I'm actively falling asleep. You know what I mean? It's just like hard.
And it's one of those maps that, like, for me, forces me to play a specific way, and I like that. I like that map is dedicated to just sniping. And if there was events like that for those maps, it would be really fun for everyone, right? And I mean, events in this game are great. And I think a big thing with all the maps in Tarkov is the flow of the map.
Yeah.
Like, a good example of this is Interchange a few wipes ago. Now, I'm not saying that the bitcoins and the graphics cards weren't broken, because they were, but the flow of the map, like, you had action going on all the time.
Yeah.
You could go make money if you wanted to, and the map just felt great. Do you remember when Interchange was like crazy like that? It was just squads coming through Ollie.
Oh yeah, tons of spawns.
It was super, super fun. And yeah, I agree completely. Dogtag idea is good too, for sure.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Dude, I love it. I mean, that's just about everything that I wrote down, man. Like I said, I don't want to take up your guys' night. I could talk about this stuff forever. You know what I mean? I'm really sorry, Rengawr. I'd love to hear your thoughts on so many of the things we talked about. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I apologize.
I totally understand, man. I didn't mean that as a slight to you. I'm sorry that you missed a lot of it. But yeah, I don't want to take up all your guys' night, but like, I hope that this was valuable to you guys as well. I really, really wanted the idea for this to be like, I feel like I represent a part of the community that's, your immersion bro, your whatever you want to call it. It's just like, and there's such a rift. And of course, not to say that the point of this is to cater to the drama. We started all of this off by saying like 88% of all that Twitter stuff it's just bullcrap. It's all blown out of proportion. It's all conflated ego, people just raging. That's all bullcrap. But even if you take all that aside, I just think that there's a rift in the community around the people that are trying to learn the game, that are frustrated at the game, that are frustrated at the bugs in the game and this stuff. And then they see you guys who are so successful, like, by to a level 7, by every metric, you guys are successful. You're winning so many fights. You've got all the gear they want. You've got all the cases they want. You're a high level. And so to see you guys, frustrated at things or saying something, you guys are justified in doing it, but it's like, it's just created this thing. And so like, I really wanted to like, and I'm super glad we did it, because like so many of these conversations really led back to like what I said in my DM to every single one of you. There's so much more common ground than people think. We all want the same thing for the game. Like, so 100%. Many people want BSG to execute on their vision, to execute on the vision well. And like multiple times throughout the night, most of you have said like, maybe I like this, but I'm willing to sacrifice my playstyle for this. Or like, yeah, it would be better for the game and better for new people if it's this. I miss this, but it's better for this, so let's go this. Like, you guys are showing that you're willing to adapt, to sacrifice, to change, to make the game better. And I really wanted people to see that. So, I don't know.
For sure, man. 100%. I'm glad you did it. It's I enjoyed talking about the game. Like, for me, it's hard to like express your opinion without people just thinking you're an idiot. It's like we all have our own opinion, and I try and respect everyone else's opinion as much as possible. But it's like, whenever we try and talk about these things, it's because we care for everyone and the game itself. Like these issues need to be looked at, and if we don't speak about them, nothing's going to change, right? Like, I don't know. It's the only way you can change is talking about things. So
yeah, exactly. It's the same thing with the weight changes. Like when they redid the weight changes, everyone spoke about it. Literally on Reddit, every streamer was talking about it. They removed it within hours.
Yeah,
like, that's the only way to get these things changed, is by talking about it. Yep. If we just not talk about it and just soak it up and deal with it, nothing's gonna change. And like when we talk about these things, we don't hate the game. Like that's we stream the game and we continue streaming because we like the game. Yep. Yeah, it gets annoying sometimes, and we do force ourselves sometimes, but like we're still want the best for the game, and that we probably have the same common ground, like we just did today.
Yep.
Like I said, like I'm willing, like and I'm pretty sure every WKeer Chad or
I'm
Labs
willing to
PvP
help
Giga
if
Chad
I could.
was wanted Inertia. It's just the current state is just not there, you know. And that's everyone could like we all agreed on that.
100%.
Like even like simple testing, like I mean it's a sore subject, I'm sure, but even if like they were to ask like all of the top streamers that play the game, like, hey, you guys test this, give us some feedback. We want to see all of your opinions.
Yeah.
Even small things like that could be like beneficial, I think. To even like just like the inertia and the recoil control things.
Yeah.
I don't know. I wish BSG involved things more like that, but it like again, like I said earlier, that's a bit of a sore subject because you don't want to take opinions of just streamers, right?
Yeah.
You want to have a collective opinion of everybody. So
yeah,
for sure, 100%.
I mean, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Rengawr. I want to hear your thoughts.
I was gonna say, I think that community consensus, or even just asking multiple different people like what they think about it, would be strong, because maybe the way that I envision Inertia is different than the way Tigz envisions it or the way Hyper envisions it. And I think like you could pull a little bit from like all of what we're saying to get like a really solid system. And like if a lot of people are like, yo, this does not feel good, then okay, let's take this different way. We need to check it out, because not to get super deep into it, but for me, Inertia, I would like if when I was walking around, it didn't feel like as like input laggy and like hard to move around doors and stuff. And as I continued to switch directions, Inertia got worse and worse. Like 80 strafing, if I strafed one time, it wasn't really bad. And then as I kept doing it, it gets really, really, really bad.
Yeah.
Like stuff like that. I mean, that's the way I want it. Maybe that's not the way everyone else wants it, you know?
Yeah. I think I think so a plug for the ETS for sure, because like everybody can apply to be on it. Like literally just open your launcher, click on like the ETS thing and like apply to be on it, because once again, I can't get too far down the rabbit hole because of the NDA and stuff like that, but I can vouch for the fact that they listen, that it's a group of people that they're asking you to test a particular thing, and they really do listen to the feedback. However, I would love to see, I don't know if you guys ever played like RuneScape or anything, but they used to have like a town hall, like a place in the game where you could go and the devs would like ask you a question and the community could vote. I would love for like in the Intel Center, you know what I mean? Like BSG could ask that question. You know what I mean? They could just tweet out and be like, hey, like, let us know what you think about this weekend. And everybody could go in and be like, what do you think about Inertia? What would you think about if we did this to the flea market? And it's like, they don't have, like, they set the expectation. We don't have to do any of this. We don't have to listen to the community feedback. You're the devs, do whatever you want. But I think it would feel good for the players to be able to cast that vote, to say, hey, I don't like this, or I think it should be changed, or whatever. And it would just, I don't know, because then, like you were saying, Tigz, it gets everybody's input. You know what I mean? Not just streamers. That is definitely that's a tough line to walk, because like you want people with a lot of hours in the game. Like, you know what I mean? I don't know, like I trust people when I play a brand new game. Like if I hopped into WoW, you know what I mean? I wouldn't go to Asmongold and be like, bro, well, you just like, you know what I mean? You just want the Chads to be good. It's like, he probably knows a lot more about WoW than I do. You know what I mean? So you want that, but at the same time, you want the feeling, because at the same time, it is true. I don't know what it's like to be new in 12.12. I know what it's like to be new in 0.9. You know what I mean? And so something like that, where it allows, it would allow them to ask questions to the community and make people feel heard, I feel like would be a good thing.
I feel like a quick little question. Like I feel like they could do something, you know, like on Twitter, how they post like the ammo charts and stuff of like the most common round used.
Yeah.
I feel like it would be really interesting to see, like, they could implement like a sort of poll system at the main menu, where like every time someone logs in, like every day, there's a different question of like, how is your, you know,
dude,
do you like Inertia? Yes or no? Like, is it overtuned? Yes or no? Like, and then they can post these statistics on Twitter and get the overall vote of like, you know, because everyone's gonna see it. It's the main menu.
Yeah.
And if they just like do a question every week, I feel like they would get a lot of votes.
Yep.
And probably try to.
And the more that they did that, the more honest it would be. Right now, if you did a poll, do you like Inertia? If you kind of like Inertia, you're going to vote yes, because they're all angry at you guys. They're all angry at the Chad saying Inertia sucks. So they're going to vote yes, I love Inertia. You know what I mean? But the more we ask for feedback, the more frequently we do that, the more honest the feedback becomes. You know what I mean? Because it's just like, I don't know, man. I'm still not sure about this. We're a few months in and I can't tell if I like it or not. But right now, when everybody's just so pissed. The sides form really quickly, and it's just us versus them, and so I'd love to push that impetus back on BSG. It's their game. They're the ones that make the decision. They're the ones that should hear the feedback, provide us a way to give the feedback. Because it might not be a bug. It might not just be a bug to report. It might just be, I don't know if I like the Inertia. You know what I mean? Give me on a scale of 1 to 5. How are you enjoying Inertia? Like, let people be honest, and I think that would be valuable for them.
For sure. I agree.
Cool.
100%.
Well, thank you guys. So, go ahead.
Yeah, seriously, man, I've enjoyed the podcast, man. It's good to talk about these things, 100%. And thank you for inviting me to it. It's been fun, for sure.
Dude,
definitely a cool thing to do.
100%. Maybe we'll make this something that we do every few months or something to talk about like big changes or big things coming, or because I think it's good to show both sides of the community. I think it's been great to let you guys really elaborate on what you think. You know what I mean? I tried to basically just ask the question and let you guys go and not give you what I think and tell you. You know what I mean? So
yeah, for sure.
So I appreciate it.
It's a good one.
Thank you guys so much for coming. Obviously, if you're watching, I'm gonna probably put this on YouTube. I saw 1 million people ask that. I think I want as many people to see this conversation as possible. So Tigz, HyperRat, Rengawr, please go follow these guys. These are all people I asked because these are all people I know are absolute god giga chads at the game. Watch them and learn, please, because I watch them and learn. And B, because I knew that all 3 of these dudes would be able to have this conversation, right? Like you guys are all people that we can ask questions to. We can have a real conversation about. It's not just a salt mine. You know what I mean? I've interacted with all of you before. So please, if you haven't yet, go check these guys out. But yeah, thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. And yeah, we'll talk to you guys soon.
Yeah, man. 100%. Thank you, Jesse. Appreciate it, man.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, man.
See you later, boys.
Yep.
Anything. Peace. Good night, guys.